This conference will now be recorded.
Council, and ask our city recorder, Phyllis Bowman, for the roll call, please.
Councillor Belts.
Here.
Councillor Carey.
Here.
Gotta get that
Councillor
many
Bocat.
times this year. Here.
Councillor McKeel is excused. Councillor Oberst.
Here.
Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
Here.
Mayor Coons.
I am present, and we'll start with the flag salute this evening. And Councillor Oberst, will you lead us in that, please?
I would be happy to. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is our consent calendar. That consists this time of the minutes of our previous council meeting, which was November 15th. Those minutes were included in the packet, and if I will accept either offers of corrections or additions or a motion to approve them.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Oberst, for the motion, and Councillor Salinas Oliveros for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We do have an opportunity for public comment. Those comments that we accept at this time are for items not on our agenda this evening. And we do limit those to 3 minutes. I do have a speaker card here. So if Holly Cagle will come up to the microphone here at this table. And introduce yourself, Holly, and the street and city where you reside.
Okay, my name is Holly Cagle. I'm one of the owners at OG Collective Dispensary, and I live at 4590 Corden Road in Salem. We have the business right down the street from here. My main point of coming here is we have been part of the Monmouth business community since March 9th, 2018. I'm coming here tonight to discuss the City of Monmouth's hours of operation for retail sales for dispensaries. The City of Monmouth's current hours of operation are Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Friday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The Oregon administration rules through the OLCC, their retail privileges are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Currently, we have 5 other dispensaries in Salem and 1 in Corvallis. And so the operation hours are just different by a few hours. So what I am asking for you guys to consider for these hours of operation to be changed to match the OLCCs. This would really help with the local dispensaries to provide full-time hours for employees, because currently they are working part-time. Currently, there's also 2 shifts that are the only part-time hours. It would increase local business owners' profits and also benefit the City of Monmouth with an increase to your current 3% sales tax on marijuana. So I was just asking for consideration of extending those hours.
Thank you, Holly. Does anyone have any questions?
Could you give those hours again?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing, John.
Okay, so the City of Monmouth's code is 18.05.215, and it's Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Friday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the OLCC's administration rules, and it's 845 division, 25 code, so it's 845-025-2800, and that is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will discuss that with our city manager and see if we want to put that on a future agenda.
Okay.
Oh, you had another question?
Sorry. If the hours were to change, would you prefer it to be what the OLCC has, which is what you say, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through
Correct.
Sunday?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks.
All right. this time, we will start our business agenda. Tonight's one of our favorite times of the year when we get an opportunity to thank our hardworking staff at the City of Monmouth. Tonight's an opportunity to visit those who have years of service ranging from 5 years to 20 years. And I'm going to ask Phyllis, our city recorder, is going to come out and assist me with this.
There she is. And like magic, she appears.
Like magic.
Phyllis has magic powers.
Do you need help as well?
We have them all coming up.
Yeah, just as a group photo.
If you are here this evening to be honored as one of our employees, could you please all come forward at once? We want to try and take a group photo first, knowing that some of you might have to sneak out.
Excellent. Yeah, are we in the way?
Are you in the way?
You're fine.
You should be in the picture. You don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Yes.
Is this everybody? I'm gonna take several on the count of three.
Anyway,
We're gonna keep taking this, right? It's gonna be honoring them anyway. Good call.
yeah. Actually,
They're right here.
So first of all, this evening, we would like to honor Wendy Ham. Wendy began as Monmouth's court clerk on August 6, 2002. So we are celebrating 20 years of having Wendy with us. Her position handles all of the day-to-day municipal court-related activity for the city, including 2 or 3 Wednesdays per month in court, supporting Judge McCann's dispositions as well as the occasional jury for the less frequent criminal trials when they occur right here in Monmouth. In the last 20 years, Wendy has processed over 28,000 cases. Wow. She manages all the detail related to court preparation and processing each week. She is a technical expert in her field and receives high praise from the judge and attorneys with whom she works in the court each week. Although the volume of cases and the related fines have fallen off quite a bit through the pandemic, Wendy took advantage of more downtime to make great inroads in compliance-related purging of very old court files, which is extremely time-consuming due to the complex and varied nature of all the paperwork. Also in the last 2 years, the COVID pandemic, combined with moving to her temporary office here, has led Wendy having to be quite creative with continued efficient and effective provision of court services. The court is being held only twice monthly now, around the seniors in her classes here in the Willamette Room to provide ease of access to clients, and in a hybrid format to allow the judge and city attorney to attend remotely via GoToMeeting. Wendy has worked on a DocuSign delivery mechanism so that Judge McCann can easily access roster information needed for his dispositions. She also keeps a bowl of candy at her desk, just feeling the need for a sweet, see Wendy, and loves to enjoy the holidays and decorations. We very much appreciate Wendy's 20-year contribution to the city, and particularly to the municipal court operation. Many thanks, Wendy. Thank you. And oh, give that to her if you want. John Steed. I can't believe this. John Steed is our finance operations manager, and we are recognizing him on the 15th anniversary of his June 18, 2007 hire. I've known him since he was a little kid. John joined the City of Monmouth Finance Department in 2007 as Finance Operations Manager, now known as the Finance and Business Analyst. His master's degree in information systems and his wealth of experience in data verification has stood him in good stead for 2 financial system conversions. Is that all just 2? In his primary role as the city's payroll processor, his precision and knowledge are unparalleled according to his colleagues, the city's auditors, and the various state agencies and vendors with whom he works to ensure city staff are paid in a timely and accurate manner. During the past 5 years, since we last heralded John's many achievements in his role, a few specific highlights of the way he has risen to various challenges include coming up with ways to work remotely and or appropriate distancing and still get employees paid. Number one job there, and enrolled in health benefits, etc. in March and April of 2020 when COVID-19 began. He also helped drive reporting and tracking mechanisms to support the receipt of federal grant money available for lost time and wages related to the pandemic. That was a huge effort for us to get reimbursed through the federal government for those things, so thank you for that. He worked with changes of timing of workers' comp submissions, audit, and general code provisions with a change in providers in our workers' comp system that created bigger time crunches requiring more in-depth analysis for this important city employee benefit. John took on extra duties when the other finance and business analyst left the city in April of 2022, while another finance department employee was promoted to that role but needed training. So, do everybody's job. Yeah. Dealing with more employee turnover and hiring in the last 12 months than we have seen in the previous 14 years that John has been here. There's been a significant volume of changes to all of his systems, including payroll deductions and benefits. Every time you've got somebody turning over, trying to keep track of all that, making sure people are paid correctly, and educating new people on all the process. John continues to be an asset to the City of Monmouth. His contributions in the past 15 years have been much appreciated by his supervisor, as well as all the city employees who like getting their paychecks, and all the customers with whom John has dealings. So thank you, John, so much. Sergeant Michael Strack. 15 years of service. Wow. Mike Strack joined the Monmouth Police Department as a reserve officer in December of 2006 while attending. Not unusual, I think. During this time, Mike was active in seeking out additional training and experience to further prepare himself for a career in law enforcement. While attending the Combined Agency Reserve Training Academy, he still volunteered his time performing various tasks and duties for Monmouth PD. On October 1st, 2007, Mike was hired and began serving as a full-time sworn officer. Shortly thereafter, he graduated from WU with a Bachelor of Science in Law Enforcement. As an officer, Mike was steady, consistent, and reliable. It says was, but I'm looking at Isaiah over there. I don't think that was. He quickly became a leader amongst his peers and took on a number of additional duties and assignments. To name a few, he's a field training officer, survival skills instructor, and reserve coordinator. Most notably, Mike was one of the first officers in Polk County to volunteer and receive special training for dealing with citizens in crisis and experiencing mental illness. Thank you for that. He has also served as a detective on the Polk County Interagency Narcotics Team. On October 1st, 2017, 10 years years with us. Mike was promoted to the rank of patrol sergeant and yet again took on countless additional tasks and assignments while serving in a leadership role within the department. Most recently, in June of 2022, you were reclassed as a detective sergeant overseeing investigations for the police department. Sergeant Strack has been a vital member of the Monmouth PD and has dedicated himself to serving this community and fellow members of the Monmouth Police Department. We are very truly grateful, Sergeant Strack, and congratulate you on 15 years of service. We didn't even mention all the work you did to get the Tesla. So thank you for that. That's side duty, all the research, the important job of driving it around. Black, 10 years with us, 10 years of service. The city of Monmouth values the hard work of every employee. And today, I would like to express all of our gratitude to Billy Black for his 10 years of dedication. The majority of her career with the city has been spent in the Public Works Department, but he recently defected and joined Power and Light.
Oh my.
Billy and his wife, Kalika, have 3 children. Billy enjoys spending time with his family. He likes outdoor activities such as fishing, hunting, and apparently climbing up light poles when the power's out in the middle of a storm. So enjoy that. Power and Light considers themselves very fortunate to have you join their department. We're excited to have that new journey. Thanks a lot, Billy. There you go. You might use that. Mike Gregory. Oh, also 10 years. Mike Gregory joined Power and Light in December of 2012 and now serves as our interim director. When asked about accomplishments and proud moments in Monmouth, can't wait to see what he thinks. Mike said, I think there are 2 things that come to mind. One being the fact that the public as a whole in this town show that we are grateful for what we do. And they are great to work with and for. The other thing would be the February 2021, there was this little kind of ice storm thing, and how the amazing work our Power Light department did, how well it went, and how you all worked together to get the power back on. Pretty much I tell every mayor, 13 hours. I counted 13 hours. Like, that was amazing. It really was a huge accomplishment. So we agree with you on that. Mike is an important team player on our relatively small staff. Keeps our electric service up and running, little job. You serve as a lineman, foreman, and as your words show, you're part of the group that works in all conditions to keep our important systems up and running. And thank you for stepping in as interim superintendent. New challenges, interesting things coming on, or interim director. So, thank you, Mike. Wow, nice. All right. Yeah, you can go sit down.
No more group photos this evening.
Thank you.
Our 10 years, another 10 years of service, David Ritchie is not with us this evening. He joined the Monmouth Police Department as a reserve officer in 2012. It was apparent right away that David was an organized, hardworking, and driven individual. After completing the Mid-Valley Reserve Training Academy, he hit the ground running and never looked back. He set a goal to become a solo reserve officer and completed it in record time. While most reserves are content with riding along and put in very respectable but minimum monthly hours, David doubled and tripled his hours to gain experience and proficiency in the field. On October 31st, 2014, David accomplished his goal and became a solo reserve officer. Over the years, he has volunteered to help with all the events the police department takes part in. He's worked special events, traffic grants, sanctioned court, in-service training, and has taken an active senior role within the reserve department. David has also served several stints as a paid part-time police officer, covering shifts when the department has been in need. David has a heart for service and volunteerism, and we're really grateful to have him here. So we'd like to thank David Ritchie, our reserve officer, on 10 years of service. But he is a Jackson as well. All right. They're left. Here they go. The line there's more than that. Yeah. So these employees have been with us for 5 years, and we want to acknowledge that. It's been kind of an amazing time if you look at this lineup. Janet Chenard. Janet joined Monmouth as the police finance director in August 2017 when I was just a mere community member on the panel that said, we have to get this one. She names 2 things that have given her a lot of joy about working in Monmouth. First is the amazing, smart, conscientious people she gets to work with across all departments. Where did they find these great people? Yeah, that's our HR department. And the combo role that she finds fun, which is to be able to be a mentoring manager, but also do a lot of the technical work, such as budget auditor. Well, she's been at Monmouth. Janet was excited to have been able to get the GFOA Budget Distinction Award for the city year 2 and ever since, and that is a really big one. Janet can also be proud of truly excellent debt management timing and being able to decrease interest payments on the former MyNet debt by over $1.5 million with 2 refundings in 2017-2020, plus getting great rates for our urban renewal agency bonds and Monmouth City Hall debt with the help of the markets, but knowing when to go. And to move our S&P credit rating up from A+ to AA-. So that's been huge. These are all signature achievements by our amazing finance director, but there's more. We can thank Janet for being a constant cheerleader and supporting or walking and biking to work and taking on the big and small other duties, such as making sure we celebrate birthdays and clock winding. Interesting skills, you know. Thank you so much. Enough of these. No, I never have enough of these. And in the department head parade, Barbara. Barbara Clement joined Monmouth in December 2017 and serves as the director of the Monmouth Senior Retreat. It has been rewarding and welcoming to see the Senior Center's events and trips starting up again in 2022 under Barbara's leadership. There was this weird little time when they couldn't go anywhere. Monmouth benefits from Barbara's deep involvement in the community and shows her deep care for everyone who comes into the center. Barbara noted that something that stood out to her when she was starting the job was how many strong partnerships the Monmouth Senior Community Center has with organizations and groups throughout the county. And stepping into the role, Barbara was able to meet so many people and keep those partnerships growing strong while also adding to the list, bringing new partnerships to the center to benefit older adults and all community members. Barbara can be beyond proud to be part of the well-deserved addition of the word community to the center's name, recognizing we truly serve the whole community. Barbara says, it's our community partnerships that make us able to serve the community as a whole and keep our older adults connected to everything else and to each other. And I want to say, too, other work that she has done in helping are active adults here and the focus of our senior advisory board on meeting the city's broader goals and how they fit into that. It's just absolutely amazing. She's been a huge advocate for especially our work on community engagement and DEI, and I really want to thank her so much. Can't even see the scratches on your face.
I know.
Also, 5 years, Suzanne Ducker. I told you it was a huge year. Suzanne joined the city in October 2017 and has served as our community and economic development director very well in her 5 years as we're working. We have Suzanne to thank for the city's economic development strategy, food assistance projects, getting Monmouth involved in the Main Street program, cheer from the Oberst section, supporting Monmouth's business and restaurant community through the pandemic, maintaining relationships with Western and numerous planning and zoning projects that build our community. Suzanne says, one of the things that has impressed me about working for Monmouth is the wide variety of day-to-day tasks and activities. Getting up the crack of dawn to track down crowing roosters to help organize the reindeer run. Reindeer spelled R-A-N, deer run, due to the downpour that occurred during the outdoor summer. Updating the city's 20-year residential land use inventory, working on public information and communications effort during COVID-19. Thank you so much for that. And the 2021 ice storm. Working with local business owners on redevelopment opportunities downtown and new development opportunities on the outskirts. I most enjoy working with small business owners, volunteers, and community partners on grassroots community projects that make Monmouth a better place to live. We're so happy. Thank you, Susan. Cody Goings is not here with us this evening, but I want to honor his work as 5 years as a water treatment specialist in our public works department. If y'all don't know, that's one of our most important functions in this city, is making sure your water is in good shape. Cody has been a part of the public works department for 5 years. He came to the department with valuable previous experience at the city of Amity, where he worked as a utility worker for over 5 years. One of his duties there was to operate the surface water treatment facility. This experience has been a great asset for Monmouth, as Cody is the primary certified operator of our recently constructed water filter system. Cody and his wife Jenna raised their family of 2 boys, TJ and Grayson. They're very active in the outdoors with hunting, fishing, boating, and camping. Cody is active in this community. He currently holds a city council position for the city of Amity. Cody can also be found coaching his son's many Public Works is thankful for his past 5 years and looking forward to more. Thank you, Cody. Speaking of people we spoke with Amity, Matt Johnson is our operations manager for the Water and Parks Departments, also our Public Works Department, who's been with us for 5 years. Its service only spans 5 years, but he has over 21 years experience in public works. He's worked for the cities of Lafayette and then Amity, where he was actually the public works superintendent. That is certified as both a state of Oregon water operator and wastewater operator. So that gets you coming and going. While coming to Monmouth, Matt has played key roles in recent water treatment upgrades, and as well as the formation and excellent work of the MI Town Regional Skate Park Committee's efforts for bringing a new skate park to Monmouth. Matt is also an industry leader in Oregon. He's served on the board of the Oregon Association of Water Utilities since 2015, currently serving as the board's president. Matt's work with OAWU ensures that water and wastewater operators have access to high-quality industry training. His work with OAWU also finds him representing water and wastewater utilities when Oregon legislators are considering bills and new regulations that affect the industry. Matt and his wife Tasha are raising 2 active young boys who enjoy hunting, fishing, camping, and working in the shop. So Matt is not the only member involved in public service in our community. His wife Tasha serves as the city recorder for Amity, and his mom Karen Johnson is the city recorder in Independence. The Public Works Department is thankful to have Matt as part of the team, and we look forward to many more years of service to the citizens of Monmouth. So, thank you, Matt. All right. Officer Cruz Orozco. Cruz Orozco joined the Monmouth Police Department initially as a reserve officer in October of 2016 and was very active. So he was not only a reserve officer, but working full-time as the regional manager for Prestige Theaters, the movie theater in Independence, and then some other locations, and attending the Mid-Valley Reserve Training Academy, riding with full-time officers, volunteering to help with special events, and he was a dad for a young child. On June 1st, 2017, he was hired and began serving as a full-time support police officer. As a police officer, he has continued to build positive relations with community members and is always willing to help those in need. We helped rescue a little dog together one night. It was very small. Officer Orozco successfully completed his associate's degree after being hired as an officer and is now a graduate of Chemeketa Community College, holding an associate's degree in criminal justice. Officer Orozco has continued to further himself as an officer and has attended a significant amount of professional development training. This is a big part of our training team, serving both as a field training officer and taser instructor. We are very fortunate to have Officer Orozco on our team and look forward to his continued hard work and service within our community. So congratulations on your first 5 years. I'd like to introduce you to our records clerk, Myra Holmes. Myra joined the Monmouth Police Department as a part-time records clerk in June of 2017. So 5 years ago. Previous experience and skill set was an immediate help with the police department. We were solely responsible for background checks, filing and scanning, updating the business contact list, and much more. Myra has always been willing to take on new responsibilities and tasks that others simply don't want to. She is the definition of a team player. She has regularly taken it upon herself to update the dated seasonal decor as a PD. Thank you for that. She has an eye for style and always keeps the office warm and festive for others to enjoy. On July 1st, 2021, Myra accepted a full-time position in the police department and splits her time between the records department and as the primary evidence distribution. Although she is humble and would prefer to stay behind the scenes, she fills a very important role within the police department and provides great service to our community. Thank you, Myra. Congratulations on 5 years. And we have 2 more that aren't here. I'll just read quickly about Adam Morales. Adam is the utility tech in our Public Works Department, who has been primarily supporting the water and parks part of that for the last 5 years. Adam came to the department with 7 years of prior experience in the water industry. The prior years were working at a neighboring water co-op, starting as a maintenance worker and working his way up the ladder to the been a great asset for the department. On a personal level, Adam was raised here in Independence and a graduate of Central High School. his wife Kia. He and his wife Kia have also raised their family of 4 boys right here. Adam has been active in the community coaching youth sports. With 4 boys, you pick the sport, he's probably coached. He has coached all age levels from YMCA and Central Youth Sports up to being an assistant coach for the Central High School football team. Public Works is thankful for Adam's 5 years of service and looking forward to many more. And Todd Powell has served as a lineman with the city for 5 years in Power and Life. Before becoming a lineman in Monmouth, Todd served as an apprentice in Nebraska and Kansas. Todd has a son, Riker, who is his favorite gaming buddy. Besides video games, Todd likes to fish, hunt, and ride his quad. And Todd is originally from Eastern Oregon, so he probably didn't mind the ice storm at all. We'd like to thank both Adam and Todd for their 5 years of service. Thank you all for coming. Yes.
David Ritchie is here.
David, finally get up here. Get your award, man.
Sorry, I might have been volunteering at it.
I was afraid they didn't send you the memo. So I read a lot of nice things about you, and we'll send that. This important part and a nice jacket. Thanks.
Yes, but
Nice. That was so fun.
Don't need to. Have another spot.
That was a fun part of the evening.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it
I
was.
like that.
Be able to make the whole meeting without power. I think I'll be good.
Okay.
The organizer better rejoin the meeting or else we get kicked out.
room got quiet.
Yeah. At this time, our order of business will actually be a public hearing on our urban renewal substantial amendment that has been proposed. And I'm going to turn this over to Suzanne Duffner, the 5-year director of our Community and Economic Development Department, to discuss this. And then we will open the hearing. We will take testimony and close the hearing.
All right, great. Good evening, Council, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for that introduction. As the Mayor mentioned, this is a public hearing tonight for a substantial amendment proposed to the Monmouth Urban Renewal Plan that was adopted in 2006. And I am joined this evening online with Scott Vandenbos. He is a consultant with Urban Renewal that works with Elaine Howard, so our expert that's been helping guide us through this process to make sure that we're complying with all the applicable state statutes and helping us prepare this amendment. So we have a PowerPoint presentation to go over the high points of the proposed changes. So I think, Phyllis, if you can give Scott screen sharing privileges, we'll be able to pull that up here and go through those proposed changes in a little bit more detail.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and can you hear me? I had to test out all this new stuff. All right, so I always like to give a roadmap at the beginning of my presentations so that people understand when I'm going to stop talking. The first thing we're going to talk about is the role of the city council, what they're going to do during this urban renewal adoption process, if it is indeed adopted. Then the second thing is to go over the amendment details. Also, with the amendment details, there will be some explanation of what urban renewal is, how it impacts taxing districts, and what it will look like on property taxing bills. The last little bit, and it's only a little bit, is the process left over for this amendment to be adopted. The role of City Council tonight is to hold a hearing on the proposed Monmouth Urban Renewal Plan amendment, take testimony, and make a final decision on whether or not to approve the proposed amendment. So what is urban renewal? Urban renewal is one of the last very functional economic development tools available to cities all over the state. It's unique because a lot of cities will have a neighborhood master plan done, or a downtown master plan, or various other plans that are great, but they don't have financing. Urban renewal is something that can take the projects that the city has been working very hard to plan and knows would be great for the development of the city and the citizens, and provide it with financing because it has its own financing source. It's used to address what are called blighting influences. Blight, in terms of urban renewal, is not what blight would be commonly perceived as from that term. It's defined in urban renewal statute, for example, as poor condition of exteriors of buildings, or a lack of infrastructure in the area, including needed sidewalks, transportation projects, ADA accessibility. So it's not the extreme that blight that descriptor can bring on. Urban renewal, it's not new money. It functions on the increases in property tax revenues, and I'll go over this more a couple of times in the presentation, that are already occurring due to the ability of the assessor to increase property values year to year. It is used all over Oregon. Each of these little dots, as you can see in the key, shows the amount of urban renewal areas per municipality, and it is used from the Warrenton to Bandon to LeGrand, all over. So why do cities use urban renewal? And this is probably the most important thing to think about in terms of what are we going to see happen because of this amendment. And urban renewal is used to fund those projects that are sitting there that would really help the city, but aren't the, okay, well, pipe 8 is going to burst, we need to replace it. It's the project that is, if we improve this road, we can get someone to develop something great on this specific parcel. Or if we do this, there are people who are going to come in and make something really good, but we don't have the funding directly available within the city budget to make this happen. And that's why a city chooses to use urban renewal. And this is my quick, fancy animation on how urban renewal functions. So what this shows is a nice growing arrow, and it illustrates the fact that property tax increases from year to year due to two factors. One, there's a 3% appreciation that the assessor is allowed to put on every property from year to year. And if you look at property taxing bills for a single property, even without an urban renewal area, from year to year, they increase by 3%. Most likely. In certain extreme situations, they may not. The other one is substantial improvements, and that's something along the lines of what I said before, where if the city all of a sudden improved something and allowed a big new development to occur, that would be a new development substantial improvement. And that assessed value would increase the property tax on that specific parcel because all of a sudden now it has an improvement or a structure on it. What happens when you form an urban renewal area is you choose a smaller than the whole city pocket within the city that has projects that the urban renewal agency believes will substantially improve that area, not just for citizens, but it will help increase the assessed values and help all of the taxing districts once this urban renewal area is, able to sunset. Only in this urban renewal area, not the rest of the city, only the urban renewal area, that 3% appreciation and any substantial improvements will start being redirected to the urban renewal agency, or at least the absolute value of that increased amount of property tax revenue within only the urban renewal area. Again, this is property tax revenue generated from increases that were already occurring and still would occur even if an urban renewal area wasn't formed. So how does an urban renewal area function? You can think of it almost as an entity, a financial entity of itself. And it functions the basic way that anyone who spends money functions. It has an income source, expenses, and a spending limit. The income source for an urban renewal area is that yearly property tax collections that are based on the growth in assessed value within the urban renewal area. The urban renewal area's expenses come from the projects, programs, and administration within the urban renewal area. The spending limit is something called the maximum indebtedness. Maximum indebtedness wasn't always something that Oregon had in urban renewal. It is definitely something they have now, and it is actually the main factor in when an area sunsets. It's not necessarily done by, we're going to do a 20-year area, but a city will say this is what a maximum indebtedness would be in a reasonable 20-year area, and it sunsets when they have enough money to pay off the debt for their projects. The Monmouth urban renewal area prior to this proposed amendment had a $12 million maximum indebtedness. The proposed amendment increases this to $16,359,245. How does urban renewal work? It's not necessarily the exact way that this figure is showing, because the Monmouth urban renewal area is kind of in this tail end here. It's not starting down here, it's right in here, and the Monmouth area needs more to add in some parcels and finish up some projects. The proposed maximum indebtedness increase will allow these projects to be completed. But urban renewal is something where the majority of projects that are able to be completed happen in the back 1/2 to sort of 1/3 of the urban renewal area, because that's where it actually starts generating enough money to either spend on projects as pay as you go, or to actually go out for a significant borrowing to complete some projects and then pay off in the tail end of the urban renewal area. Again, there are no new taxes from urban renewal. They call it a division of tax because the taxes are sourced from increases in property tax revenue that would have gone to the regular taxing districts. If an urban renewal area is not formed, if this amendment was not adopted, the impact to the property taxing payers would be the exact same. This will not affect that. The other items here, and it's just a summary, and I haven't gone over these yet, but I will. Schools are indirectly impacted by urban renewal, and I have a nice infographic later on in the presentation that illustrates why we say indirectly. Because yes, technically schools are impacted by urban renewal, but not like regular taxing districts. There will be a line item representing urban renewal on every property tax bill in the municipality. That line item is representative of the amount of income from the urban renewal area, but it's really a math calculation to show where that money is coming from, but it is the same impact area and the amount from the urban renewal area, regardless of how it is represented on a property tax bill. And in this proposed amendment, there are no bonds or local option levies impacted by urban renewal. So how does this impact taxing districts? Again, it's not new money. It diverts funds that would go to the other property taxing districts, such as the county, school, fire district, a lot of times vector control. That's one of the fun ones when I'm typing up these reports. Those taxing districts continue receiving revenue on the assessed value the 1 year prior to the urban renewal area being formed, which is called the frozen base. That amount of money will go to the regular taxing districts for the duration of the urban renewal area. But any growth over the assessed value of that urban renewal area during the duration of the urban renewal area gets redirected to the urban renewal agency. And in most cases, the substantial growth urban renewal can cause or benefit would not have occurred but for urban renewal spending those funds to make that growth possible. So to explain the indirect impact that urban renewal has on local school districts and education service districts, I wanted to show just a quick diagram. Urban renewal on a regular taxing district will directly impact the local property tax revenues. And it will directly impact the amount that this taxing jurisdiction has to spend. And here comes information overload. A lot of times I do this in multi-steps, but school districts are funded by something called the state school fund. Now, this
is my life.
Is where urban renewal impacts the local school district. But the property tax revenues for a local school district do not fund their expenditures. Those local revenues actually go into a pool that is the statewide property tax revenue pool. And that is funneled also into what's called the state school fund, which is not only funded by property tax revenues, but the general fund, lottery funds, and some other sources. Once the state school fund has received the money for the year, the total amount of money, there's something called the equalization formula. And it takes multiple factors into account, like whether a school district is small, transportation needs, special needs, teacher experience. And then that amount of money is given to schools on a per pupil basis. It says you get, I don't know how much exactly they get, but let's say you get $700 per student. Yeah. And so it has to go through all of those steps. And I cannot see the meeting right now because I'm presenting, but am I hearing questions or should I move on?
No, sorry. Slight interjection. So please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Okay. There are some limitations on urban renewal. For populations under 50,000, 25% of the assessed value of the property in a city can be in an urban renewal area, and 25% of the acreage. It is a first exceeded is the limiter. So if 25% of the acreage of the city is in the area, but that only equals 12% of the assessed value, that's the limit. If there's 25% of the assessed value in the city and it's only 10% of the acreage, well, then you can only have that 10%. So it's one or the other, and a lot of times, in fact, most of the time, those numbers are very close to each other when an urban renewal area is formed. In in the case of amendments, a plan cannot be increased ever beyond more than 20% of the original plan acreage. And this is why Elaine and I often advise that municipalities be cognizant of how much acreage they're having in their area, and in the future whether or not that area might want to take in some areas adjacent to it, because limiting that acreage, there is only so much you can add after the formation, and that's it. The maximum indebtedness cannot increase by more than 20% of the original maximum indebtedness unless there is a special approval given by other taxing districts. If other taxing districts provide approval, it can be increased by any amount given that the taxing districts approve the amount listed. So there is a way around the maximum indebtedness. There is no way around the acreage limitation. How is a plan amendment adopted? There are public input meetings. The first required meeting is an agency review of the plan and their forwarding of the plan out for the public review process. This process includes sending letters to the taxing districts, which are called consultant confer letters, and providing 45 days for the taxing districts to submit comments based on the plans and the information provided in the taxing district letters. A meeting with the Planning Commission to determine the urban renewal area's conformance to the comprehensive plan based on the fact that are the projects being pursued something that is in line with the goals of the comprehensive plan. Not necessarily the exact projects, but is it in line with what that comprehensive plan is saying should happen for the municipality? And finally, this is the stage that we are at. There is a city council hearing, and the city council will vote, and there are 2 readings done of the ordinance. The changes to the plan from this amendment are, again, to increase the maximum indebtedness. It will remove the duration, and it removes the duration. That brings it really in line with almost all the new plans and almost all the other plans that we work on, because the main determinant and why that was something that shifted is if we pursue a project, typically we take out some sort of formal debt borrowing and we need to pay that off. If we function on maximum indebtedness being the limiter of an urban renewal area, that area knows exactly how much money they can use to pay off debt. If we function on duration, if something happens with property tax revenue, a recession, and there's a dip, all of a sudden that urban renewal agency may not be able to make their scheduled debt payments or make all of them as soon as the duration is over. And that's a lot more complicated and a lot more fraught with legal issues. This plan also will commence with revenue sharing, which means that instead of collecting the full amount of property tax revenue that is over that initial frozen base value, a portion of that will be distributed to the regular taxing districts. So the regular taxing districts after this amendment will start receiving more property tax revenue from this urban renewal area. This amendment also adds property projects and generally updates the plan. And to go over this more fully, I'm going to pass the narration of this presentation. Oh, no, I've got one more. And did I have a question again? Because my PowerPoint isn't showing the screen. Or should I move on?
No questions.
Okay. So after this slide, I will pass it to Suzanne. This amendment is increasing the maximum indebtedness from that nice round number of $12 million to $16,359,245. This increase can be done after this substantial amendment and adoption. As I said before, it removes the duration provision, and revenue sharing is going to commence. Suzanne, if you want to talk about the boundary and these areas, I'll go ahead and do my best to click when you tell me to.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Scott. So shown on the slide is a picture of the Monmouth Urban Renewal boundary, outlined in black, and it's the shaded green highlighted properties there. So it's primarily our commercial industrial areas along Main Street, the Highway 99, and East Main Street through the S-curves. There are two small properties that are noted with the stars and the arrows pointing to them that are proposed to be added to the existing urban renewal area. And I have a couple of slides to zoom in and show those a little closer. Both would facilitate needed housing on those parcels, consistent with their housing needs objective plans. The first one is located in southeast Monmouth, just in back of the Cultivating Church Community Church on Highway 99W, the dead end of Gwen Street East. It's about a 6.3 acre parcel, and that is zoned mixed density residential, which allows for 9 units per acre. And then the second property, if we go to the next slide, is about a half-acre parcel. This one is located just off of Highway 51 or the S-curves in East Main Street, where it turns to go down towards Edwards Road. This property is zoned medium-density residential, which currently allows up to 12 units per acre, and again would help this parcel overcome some of the development challenges where it's currently vacant and in need of some utility upgrades and wetland mitigation on that. And the next slide, we're going to transition to a couple slides here that talk in more detail about the projects to be undertaken through the duration of the Monmouth Urban Renewal Plan. Primarily, the projects are infrastructure related in nature. That's primarily how we've used our urban renewal funds to spur development and redevelopment in these urban renewal areas. They're broken down on this slide by the various utility systems: water, sewer, transportation, power and light. So more than half of the projects go towards that infrastructure support needed to get parcels ready for development. And then the balance of them would help with administration, providing some economic development incentives, and financing fees and staffing to administer the plan. So in terms of the proposed specific projects in those categories, we have a number of investment incentives where we are able to come in as a partner as an economic development tool to help projects that wouldn't be able to happen but for those urban renewal assistance. Examples of those that we've provided in the past included the Ash Creek Station. We were able to help with some of the system development, infrastructure fees, and building permit fees. So that's an example of how those have been used. And then also with facade and general assistance grants on properties in need of some assistance there. Administration is the community development staff support time to be able to coordinate the projects and seek additional funding sources. We try to leverage the urban renewal funds with other state, federal grants that may be out there to help with the objectives of the plan. And then in terms of the water system master plan, we have a number of critical water line extensions, both in the north and south portions of town, that would improve fire flows and redundancy by extending those water line connections. And similar, the sanitary sewer master plan improvements show new sewer trunk lines in the southwest and northeast portions of town. And then also we planned for some additional transportation improvements where we'd be able to be a partner on some new street connections, and then also some safety pedestrian crossings with the flashing lights to get safely across 99 and near Ash Creek Station across East Main Street. So I think that was my last slide. Transition back to Scott there for the last few slides.
All right. So again, this is another one of those information overload slides, but this is showing the impacts of this amendment only. And that's why the year 2023, 24, all the way through 26 are blank, is because the original plan would have had impacts during that time. Starting in 2027, and I believe these may be positive numbers because that's sort of the net of revenue sharing and other things, or this may be the actual impact. I don't know why that would be not included. This is when the impact starts happening of the amendment. And the totals can be seen down along here on the bottom for all of the various taxing districts in the general government category. This is the full impact of the amendment. Again, we can tell it's the full impact because it shows the impact of 2023 through the end of the amendment in 2035. These totals are reflective, again, of both the original urban renewal plan with the increased maximum indebtedness added on. Let's see here. These next slides are broken down, and we separate the education districts in the general government because, again, there is a slightly different way of calculating impacts and the way the impacts affect the school district and the ESD. The community college is affected the same way as other taxing districts because it is not funded by the state school fund. These are the impacts of the amendment only. Again, you can see on the bottom, these are the totals. And then this is the impact of the original plan and the amendment. The subtotal here is just education, and that total is the total impact of the amendment and, again, original plan on the taxing districts throughout the remainder of the plan's expected life. The next steps for this amendment adoption process are, first off, the determination of whether or not council wants to approve this amendment. And if so, the first reading will be on January 3rd, and the second reading would be on January 17th. And I think, yes, that is the end of my presentation. And I believe I'll pass it back to staff to take testimony, and if anyone needs me to answer questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, so just in summary, there is a cover staff memo in your packets that summarize those changes and also provide the council options or alternatives to approve the proposed plan amendment and direct staff to prepare an ordinance to adopt that, which would happen, as Scott mentioned, over the next two meetings in January. Or the second option is take no action on the proposed plan amendment. And there's a sample motion in the packet when you are ready for that. So be happy to answer questions, or we can hold those until after we receive testimony as well.
Any questions of either Suzanne or Scott before we open for public testimony? Councilor Carey.
I just have one, and I've got some other specifics later, but sort of a general one, and I missed it in the presentation, I think. Could you remind me again how we got from, the original 12 million now to the 16 million? We're just adding a small amount of property.
There is the reason that it's such a funny number is because they say a 20%, but that 20% also counts for inflation from the beginning of the plan. So it's not 20% of just 12 million. It's 20% of 12 million inflated to today's dollars. So once you inflate that 12 million to the amount it would be worth today, then we take 20% of that amount and say we can add it to the original 12 million.
And to clarify, Scott, that's the maximum, that's the 20% we're allowed to do without getting.
Without approval from the other taxing districts, correct. Sorry, I forgot to call that part out.
And that's permissive, it's not required.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sam, do you have a question? Other questions of Suzanne or Scott? Yes, Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't feel that I have a good understanding of the purpose of the revenue sharing, or I guess what that's intended to achieve. Couldn't we just achieve the same or a similar purpose by taking a smaller portion than that 20%?
I can handle the statutory part of this. And the statutory part is there are thresholds of the maximum indebtedness once to reach where revenue sharing is mandatory. And if you have reached a certain amount of TIF, yearly TIF collections, there's the, let's see here, I think it's 10% of maximum indebtedness on a yearly basis triggers the first threshold. The second threshold is 12.5%. And once you reach that, you have to do revenue sharing. And so even if you were to reduce the amount collected to try and reach the amount that you would get without revenue sharing, if that makes sense, to try and account for revenue sharing by taking less, that would be something that you would have to fill out on your UR50 prior to knowing the amounts of increases in taxes, and it would be it would be difficult to calculate. However, there are cities that do voluntary revenue sharing above the thresholds. What I would say is the reason revenue sharing is a part of this amendment is because the thresholds have been reached.
I guess one more comment. That's a good explanation, Scott. Is it also true that if we increase the revenue sharing amount, it potentially extends the duration of how long it takes us to do the plan? So it's kind of like that get in, get out as quick as you can, because then hopefully there's that bigger payoff for the taxing districts once you're able to retire it. So yeah, a little bit of trade-off there.
Janet, did you have something to add to that? Janet Chenard, our finance director.
Why did you come up here?
Nancy.
Yes, so one of the things I want to make clear is the differentiation between the TIF and the maximum indebtedness. And you know, Scott, jump in if I haven't got it completely right, but it's really the TIF and the collection of the taxable increment financing that causes the revenue sharing. And while Scott is right, based on estimates, it looks like we will reach revenue sharing limits or threshold. But again, it's all estimates at this point, and we don't know for sure. We're basing it on how the development goes in the urban renewal district, and so there's a lot of unknowns yet with revenue sharing. But I think the key point, which Suzanne made just as I was, is that you know, if you don't do revenue sharing, which is something that can be elected by participants in the urban renewal district, or by not participants. Taxing districts, thank you. They can elect not to accept revenue sharing, and that could shorten the duration of the whole district in getting things done. But it takes certain numbers of them to do it, and Elaine presented that, I think, at the urban renewal public hearing. But Scott might be able to go over that again if you want.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so in summation, I understand that revenue sharing is a requirement, not a feature. we will say. We didn't choose to do revenue sharing. It was, well, I mean,
So we have a choice not to do revenue sharing. There's requirements for revenue sharing unless you choose not to do it.
gotcha.
And there has to
I think
be
I
a certain number of districts that can say we don't wish to do revenue sharing. Instead, we'd rather see you do it, get it done faster.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So on the revenue sharing in terms of thresholds and all of that, yes, it is based on TIF, but it is based on whether or not the amount of yearly TIF revenue has reached what would be 10% of the original maximum indebtedness. So if we're at 12 million, if the yearly revenue TIF revenue exceeds 1.2 million, then you've reached that threshold and revenue sharing commences. And then the second one is that 12.5%, and it slightly increases the ratio in a very complicated way, because people love to make property taxes complicated, that these taxing districts will receive. And revenue sharing is something where, as mentioned, if the taxing districts, and it's 75% of the permanent rate levy, which is typically like the city, the county, and the school district, say, hey, yeah, we don't really want to do revenue sharing, just finish this up, then revenue sharing does not need to commence. But until that happens, revenue sharing will be something that happens during this plan.
Okay. Other questions? All right, thank you, staff. At this time then, I will open the hearing to allow.
I've lost my connection to go to meetings, so I'm no longer on screen.
Yeah, I did too, and I just had to get back in, so.
I can't get in, so.
Oh, okay. He's still here, just not on screen. All right, and so at this time we will open the floor for public comment regarding the urban renewal substantial amendment. I know we have our fire chief, Polk County Fire District 1. If you'll, your name and your resident city for the record, please.
Absolutely. Mayor Kuntz, members of council, thank you. My name is Ben Stang. I'm the fire chief of Polk County Fire District number 1. I'm also a resident of Monmouth, but I'm here tonight. My official capacity is the fire chief. I want to thank you for the opportunity to comment on the impacts the city of Monmouth's urban renewal district has on Polk County Fire District number 1's ability to provide adequate emergency services to our community. This amended plan will prolong and extend the negative impacts the URD has on emergency response. In 2005, this area looked very different. Our response demands were different, as was our budget. Since Monmouth's URD was established, our district has experienced many of the same financial pressures as other public entities. I do not feel the need to recite all the demands, such as PERS and insurance, that have caused drastic increases in cost during this period, as I know the council is well aware of these financial pressures. Budgeting to even maintain same staffing levels year over year with property tax increases even capped at 3% is complicated enough. Compounding this issue is the explosion of demand for emergency services in our community. Since the initial plan was approved, our call volume has increased nearly 2.5 times what it was. In order to maintain adequate emergency response in our community, we've had to double our responding shift staff, though even this increase in staffing is not sufficient to meet the current demands of this growing community. To expand this increment and deny the fire district the ability to collect our full tax rate in nearly a quarter of the city and expect us to continue to keep up with increasing service demands is unrealistic. I always tell people there are things money and people money. Things are cheap, people are not. In full, this amendment will prohibit the fire district from collecting $1.6 million in taxes over the next dozen years. $1.6 million is people money. Firefighters and paramedics that we need but will not be able to fund. We acknowledge there are valuable projects in the plan. We do not see these projects as frivolous or wasteful, but we have needs. We can't simply withhold an increment from another taxing jurisdiction. We must go to the voters. I hope that when we turn to do so, those in support of this urban renewal plan will recognize it impacts what we are forced to bring to the ballot in order to keep pace with the demands of this growing community. I thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you might have some.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Chief. Any other comments on our plan amendment? Seeing no other speakers, then I'll return to council for questions.
So at this point, what we're really doing is considering whether we want to consider an ordinance, right? So-
Correct.
right,
The
yeah.
vote tonight would be to have staff prepare an ordinance to implement this.
Just clarifying that.
Thank you. Councillor Carey?
Suzanne, I'm going to need you, I think, again for this one. I'm looking at the graph that's on of the report. It's page 46 of our packet, page 19, I think, of the material that's embedded in figure 2, projected revenue sharing. And it talks about, you know, how the taxing districts would receive some shared revenue there from increment. But then there's a line that goes down, descends on that upward graph at about 2035. And the area to the right of that is a URA expires. There's going to be, we're going to need to collect revenues beyond 35, aren't we, to pay for these? Or is that going to be the end of it? I mean, it's a pretty precipitous drop.
Yeah, I think I'll let Scott, do you know which one he's referring to, the projected revenue sharing in the plan report document?
Yeah, I see it. I have it up. I'm looking at it
Okay.
right now. And what it says is prior to that on page 12, I'm sorry, my webcam's like right in the middle of my monitor. It says that the Urban Renewal District is anticipated to complete all projects and have sufficient tax increment finance revenue to terminate the Urban Renewal District in 2035. So 2035 means that all the projects are completed and the debt is paid off. If we look at I'm trying to find where that first table is. On page 11, it shows the TIF collections from 2023 to 2035, and the ending amount there in 2035. There's actually voluntary revenue sharing. If these things go as projected, again, these are projections. They're not set in stone. It's hard to do that with money and property values. And the tables thereafter, table 9 will show the amount of money that is used to pay debt service and the principal on the loans taken out to complete these projects. So 2035 is the year projected that the area would be able to terminate and have paid off all the debt and completed the projects in terms of the Urban Renewal District's contribution financially to these projects.
2035 is a projected year when the urban renewal tax increments will start to flow back to and full to the taxing districts. Is that
absolutely
correct?
That blue in that graph is all property tax revenue that would be received by the regular property taxing jurisdictions.
That's confusing to me. I mean, it would be one. I mean, I hope that's the case. We're currently, what do we have right now? 4 million in indebtedness. We're talking about going possibly 4 times that amount to 16, and we're going to pay it all off in 10 years. 10 additional.
So just to be clear, the 16 million maximum indebtedness does not necessarily mean we take out loans for that amount.
Sure.
We've taken out 4 million and so the 16 million is what we actually spend on projects. And so we borrowed $4 million as resources towards those projects. That loan is paid off in 2035. And then we are looking at potentially doing another $5 million loan either this year or next. And that is all of the debt that would be needed based on TIF coming in. So that taxable increment financing revenue comes in at a rate that helps pay off debt, but also finances projects. So we use partially the debt funding and partially the taxes that come in through that taxable increment resource to pay for the projects. And we then spend up to $16 million on projects using those two resources. Does that make sense? Well, three resources because there's two loans and then taxable increment financing.
Right, but, and I was looking, I was sort of cross-referencing something else, so I missed a bit of that. But we have those loans outstanding
Through 2035. And so the plan would be to, if we did another 5 million loan, to structure it such that it ended, right now it's structured in this estimate to end by 2035. So it might be a 10-year financing or something less than 15.
You know, and I didn't pay close attention to all the dollar amounts assigned to all of the projects, but there's a lot of stuff, you know, we're burying pipes underground and going a long ways. That's expensive. And I didn't really zero in, and I've got a couple of different documents that I'm trying to keep track of. That seems aggressive. I'm hoping we can do that. For all the things that we'd like to do, to have it all paid off. And some of those projects are going to be done in 32. So 3 years beyond that, we're done. Don't owe anybody anything.
Based on these projections, yes, because that's assuming development occurs at the rate that we expect it to get the taxable increment finance that we expect to get. So those resources and then paying off the debt is also paid for with the TIF, and the projects are paid for either by cash through the TIF or through the resources of the debt.
I'm going to pivot, just if I may, just to get my docket cleared off here, and then I'll get out of the way. You know, in the prior plan, I think, although I couldn't find any of the text of it, there was a section called property acquisition. I don't see that. I don't see any text to that in the new version. I don't believe. We're adding 7 acres, but we're not acquiring that technically, are we? We're not going to own
We're not going to buy it.
Right, we're not planning to buy it. So that's still a tool, and it's still in our original urban renewal plan. The text that's in front of you are the sections of that plan that are being amended. So that enabling language to acquire property is still in our plan document.
Okay, but we don't have any.
We didn't budget any specific right projects for that.
You know, I guess if in our pursuit of affordable housing, if we owned land, we could control how that was developed. If we don't, we can cajole and encourage and partner with those that fund nonprofit housing, low-income housing. It's not a surety. And one other thing, and then I'll be completely done. You know, one of the things we talked about transportation, and there's a number of things about transportation and, you know, alternatives for vehicles and all that sort of thing. I didn't see anything there for electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and be it stations, be it power sources to those places. Seems like if we're concerned with modernizing transportation, that might be an addition that we could add, and it may be embedded in there as an option that I missed.
Yeah, so I mean, we do have the option to do minor amendments and adjustments to our project list as we're moving forward, but we took a scalpel. We had like a really long list of things at wish list, and knowing that there are impacts to other taxing districts, we took that. We had to take a very, targeted approach on projects that are really serving as those catalysts, those infrastructure needs to allow portions of our city that are, you know, the areas where growth is planned to be able to open up.
Sure.
So, you know, it's a tool, the urban renewal, but there are others for the EV charging stations. And I know that our Power and Light department is applying for grant funding to help with that in other ways. So, yeah, so I wouldn't say it's not, you know, in the realm that we couldn't use the funds for this, especially if it's in, you know, the downtown and downtown's in the urban renewal district. Again, it's just, we were trying to keep this list and the dollar amounts as tight as possible so that it wouldn't extend that duration any longer. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's lots of other
Yeah.
funding coming out down the pike. I've spent 2 hours on energy related and infrastructure related project grants coming out of the federal government that we will be able to take advantage of here too as well. All right, other questions?
So to be clear, we cannot go over that maximum amount, no matter if things do not come into cost, like you're estimating, or things in cost increases, we cannot go over that amount. Is that correct? Because that's the maximum, that's 20%.
So Scott may have something more to say to this too, but I believe that the 16 million is the maximum we can do for the escalation built on the, inflation. But I don't think that we can go above and beyond that even with another substantial amendment, right, Scott?
Well, I mean, with another substantial amendment, if you got all the taxing districts to approve of it, then you may be able to increase it. But I also want to point something out because, as I've said in this presentation, there is uncertainty with the way money will change and inflation will work. However, the way that urban renewal law is written, interest is not a part interest on borrowings is not a part of your maximum indebtedness. So even if interest rates change and other things change, your maximum indebtedness is allocated to the principal of your borrowings only. Okay, so it's not something where if you took out a $4 million borrowing with $4 million of your maximum indebtedness, all of a sudden interest, inflation, whatever, that happens and you think you can't hit it. No, you took out $4 million, your maximum indebtedness said $4 million, you're going to pay it off, and once you take out that borrowing, it's done. You're good, and nothing will impact that. If interest did impact maximum indebtedness, it'd be different. It'd be a lot scarier, actually. But it does not.
Wait, you're asking about the project list, right? So if a project we put in the project list, if those project costs start growing too much,
Yeah.
you don't get to just go ahead and do them because they're in the plan. Okay.
Okay, because we're being really conscious about that amount, is from what I'm hearing. You're cutting out things because understanding the effects, and okay. So I guess for me, I'm trying to go into the I guess my vote is coming in. I'm not taking it too lightly. I heard what our fire chief was saying. At the same time, I kind of see two different views here. Our population is going to continue to grow, and the demands are going to continue to grow from the population growth. And eventually I can see our fire district having to go out to the voters anyway, depending how much we grow. But it is a concern. It's a concern because we want these services. And I understand also the need for the housing that we need as well in our communities. So trying to balance those things out, and maybe, find if there are other resources for our service districts, that would be helpful. So just trying to wrap my head around all of the money, all of what we're trying to do to improve the community, and how it's taxing our services. At the same time, they're going to continue to be taxed with the amount of population growth that we have, and that's going to continue to grow. So, but thank you for the explanation.
I'm going to leave to questions right now because we'll have an opportunity to kind of talk through what
Mhm.
our thoughts are about it. Counselor Oberst?
So I just need a little bit of clarity on something here. I'm on page 50 of the report, titled Projected Full Impact of Amendment on Taxing District Permanent Rate Levy. I'm looking at the fire district column, and I see Chief's number of 1.629 million. But if I go to the next page of the report, which is page 51, and it is titled Projected Impact of the Amendment Only, I see the Polk County Fire number is 651,000. So do I understand correctly that if we don't do the amendment, there's $1 million impact on the fire district, and if we do the amendment, it's a $1.6 million impact? So regardless, it's going to be a $1 million impact where we stand right now. So really what we're talking about is 600,000, 650,000 spread over 10 years.
That's my understanding, Scott.
Did I get that right, Scott? If you're still there?
That is correct.
There
Yeah, I'm here. I was told to mute and shut off my screen to be kind to other people speaking. But yes, that is correct.
Okay.
The impact is solely of the amendment is solely on that table.
Okay, that's helpful. It's not to be diminished as an impact in any case, Chief. I definitely see it, but I wanted to make sure we understand that what we're talking about tonight is only the amendment, because the other stuff was done 15 years ago, and the amendment impact is 0.6, not 1.6, 6.65. Okay, so.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay.
Yeah, and that you can spread that across all the taxing districts and see the impact that the amendment alone would have on each one of them. Again, not unsubstantial impact for anybody. When I think about what we've done with this district so far and the potential we have going forward, if we make this small increase in acreage and take the time limit off the back end.
All right, I'm
That's
going
the
to
big
limit
thing.
comments until we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah. Okay.
Any
Thanks.
other questions? All right, thank you. Our hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion or not.
If I can find it.
Can't find
It's a
it.
long staff report, man.
Hunt.
Where is it?
Too much stuff.
Sorry,
No.
there is a motion, a potential motion.
Page
on
11.
page
I see it.
Okay, you go first.
11 of
You
our
got it.
packet.
It's yours.
I would move approval of the Monmouth Urban Renewal Plan Amendment and direct staff to prepare an ordinance to adopt said amendment.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst, for the motion, and Councilor Salinas Oliveros for the second. And now I would entertain comments on the motion. I think, again, just because I watch these things as part of my day job, I will just point out for interest, what might interest those of us is that Monmouth has an urban renewal agency, so does Independence, that they actually have one as well. And the value, the excess assessed value in Independence is about 75,000 or 75 million. Ours is about 56 million. So they have a much larger valuation in Independence than we do. And they use their urban renewal obviously vigorously. And that has certainly added to the fire district's burden. So they are facing double burden from the two cities. But I just thought I would share that with you as well, that's still out there as well. Yes, Councilor Belz.
Perhaps this is way too open-ended of a question, but what can we do to mitigate that? It really concerns me, and I'm completely torn now.
What can we do to mitigate that? I understand Chief Stengi said if a bond measure comes up, he would ask us to support it, obviously, but what else can we do? Or is that too open-ended?
Well, I think we've talked legally about the revenue sharing. That is a piece that is now available or would potentially, based on projections, be available that was not available in the past, based on our current plan. That, and then, as mentioned, several years ago, the fire district did have to go out for an operating levy, just as Polk County has for a public safety levy. And as far as I know, indications are both of those agencies are going to continue those levies. That's not necessarily due completely to these urban renewal districts. It is also very much due to our property tax structure in Oregon, where these, not only the 3% growth limit, which was imposed, but also, for example, something that our League of Oregon Cities, our advocates have talked about in the past, is things like reset value at sale. So the 3% increase goes forever. As we know, a piece of property changes hands, the new owner pays a significantly increased price, but they're still paying property taxes based on that 3% increment. So there are a lot of things folks in the state have tried to do to see if we can get an opportunity to restructure the property taxes that fund agencies like our extremely valuable partners at the fire department. So we can also advocate for things like that.
Thank you.
Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One portion of the report that I don't believe we've given much consideration to thus far tonight is the newly identified project list. It is on page 21 of our packet 10 of the report, if I'm reading this correctly. And I recognize that funding is always at a premium. We never have enough dollars to go around. We've discussed on the city end, the city's need to mitigate our PERS burden moving forward. That still looms over our head. The city itself will be taking the largest hit. If I read these tables correctly, will take the largest hit in terms of taxable revenue of all the taxation districts. However, I look at this project list and I see a lot of things that I've heard residents call for. We're looking at traffic safety improvements, RFBs at Ash Creek Station. We're looking at water line improvements. I know that we were talking about water earlier tonight during the awards and how critical our water infrastructure is to the well-being of the city. Those are just a handful. There's a full list there. These are items that are not just critical to the city's future growth and increasing of that tax base, but also just critical to our general well-being that I've heard a lot of call for. Like many others, I recognize the difficult spot that this puts everyone in. We're diverting funds from one area to another. I do understand and I do look at that at that graph or at that chart that indicates the TIF growing over time, and gosh, I believe that we're gonna get there close to 2035. But how do we balance these, right? This is what goes through my head. We don't have other answers to be able to backfill these other products. Improvements at Madrona to facilitate safe crossing of that highway there. So I just like to look at not just the other implications here, but what we're doing this for. And when I look at what we're doing this for, I think I come behind it and support it.
Counselor Carey?
As I look at your list as directed, Councilor Lopez, I see things here that, deal with the underground utilities for the most part. The flashing beacons are fine, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not big fiscal drivers. The only way we expand our sewer system and provide the pump stations and all of that that's necessary for growth is by rate increase. Now, there may be some grants out there, but it's a rate increase. Let's face it. These things have appeared on our project list for some time, and they are rate increase drivers. Same with water. Lesser extent probably with transportation because a lot of that funding comes elsewhere. But we could get to these projects, but it's going to take a long time to get to these projects. And it's going to take a lot of rate increases at incremental rates in order to get there and develop funds, SDCs and others, that will fund that. If we're serious about smart growth in the city of Monmouth and effective planning, as I think this plan reflects, then we need to get behind this. And otherwise is to wait for the sort of the slow accrual and the upward ratcheting of the rates and then standing waiting hand in hand for a federal grant of some sort. So I'm inclined to get on with it. Let's utilize these things to position ourselves for Monmouth to grow in a reasonable way. With respect to, and I'm sympathetic to Ben's concerns, clearly, but as Councilor Oberst suggests, it's 600 and whatever 50 over 12 years, not a small amount, but they do have, should they choose, other means to fund that. You mentioned the operating levy. We don't have that short of, I guess we do, and that's a significant rate increase. So I guess it goes, we both have them, I guess, now that I think about it. But I think this is if we focus on the large items that will really drive things, and we don't have enough, in my opinion, on housing in here. But we have some incentives and we have some other things that will help us get there. So I think it's a good plan. There is some negative impact on everybody around, including the city's general fund. But I think at the end, when we come out the other end in 2035, holy cow, we're in a better position financially and in a better position as a city by the time we get there. Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, I will ask for a vote on the motion on the floor to direct city staff to prepare an ordinance to adopt the amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes, and we will look for an ordinance for first reading in January. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your graphics and expert knowledge there. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chief. And you bet, we'll knock doors for your levy, operating levy next spring. We'll be there. That takes us, we have a couple quick item, and then we've got another guest here, so I think I'll go at least these next couple of items before we take a break, if that's all right with folks. So our next item is consider approval of a request for a change in OLCC licensing. And I see Sergeant Strack is with us to walk us through that.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm Sergeant Mike Strack with the Police Department. I'm kind of filling in on this one, so bear with me. But what we've got for you is a change in liquor license for Sing Fe Restaurant. It's a greater privilege application. They submitted their application with the city, and it was passed along to us, and we did a kind of more of an updated background check on Sing Fe because they have already been granted an OLCC license and have so for several years. And recently they had been updated in the 2022 year. And so through the background and talking with the owners, there's no significant changes in the business as far as calls for service or any issues pertaining to OLCC regulations. So it is staff's recommendation to approve the greater privilege liquor license.
Thank you. Any questions of Sergeant Strack?
Thanks for your work on this.
Councilor Lopez?
Thank you, Sergeant. You mentioned that there were no, oh gosh, I didn't
Calls
get
for
your,
service.
Yeah, no calls for service. Thank you. That's the term I was looking for. Relating to the OLCC license at the location of the business. Have there been any other recent calls for service at this location?
Off the top of my head, I know we've had a couple of like vandalisms with the business, some thefts and stuff like that. But it was actually, I believe, closed down for a good portion of this year for remodeling and stuff like that. So generally speaking, that business is not one that would come to my mind of having any issues other than them being a victim of something.
Gotcha. And so within that, I understand that there have been no calls for service of anyone, making complaints about the business itself.
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go ahead and move to send the OLCC a recommendation to approve the liquor license application for Sing Fe.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Salinas Oliveros for the motion and Councilor Belts for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, go ahead and we'll have the police department sign off on that and forward it to OLCC.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're going to skip that item so we can get to our guests and
Thank you.
we'll
Just
come
wanted to make
back
sure.
around. I didn't skip it totally. So we're good. Oh, we have to officially do it. So our next item is a further discussion. We've had preliminary discussions. This is one of those items that didn't come up until we suddenly had a much larger population, and we are now subject to some additional state requirements. I'm going to turn this over to City Manager Marty Hine to talk about our franchise agreement with Brant Sanitary Service.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Tonight, this is going to be the first of two reviews of the services that are provided by Brant's. And in this case, as the staff report indicates, it's to bring our services and our franchise provisions into line with state law and regulations regarding recycling specifically. Today, Brant's provides 4 out of the 6 required recycling elements that are required by state regulations. And now that our population has reached a population threshold over 10,000, we need to add 2 more services to be in compliance with those regulations. So before you tonight, we have a resolution 1959, and that directs Brant's to add 2 additional services. And you've probably seen that Josh Brant from Brant Sanitary is here tonight. Together, we can answer any questions that you have about the regulations or the DEQ requirements, or the services that we're suggesting through this resolution that we would add. Those currently, what I tried to do in the staff report is outline the current services that are provided by Brant's and the 4 that DEQ is giving, I'll just call it giving Brant's credit for.
Sure.
And through a review together with DEQ and Brant's in the city, we talked through the menu of 13 elements that we may require, which ones will be both, I would say, most easiest near term to be able to add into the complement of services. And so there are two of those services: providing commercial recycling to businesses that request it, and implementing food waste collection along with yard debris are the 2 services we're suggesting to add to the complement of services to make 6. And that would bring us into compliance with DEQ's requirements. And I don't want to belabor the staff report aspect of this. I added the entire Oregon administrative rule in there for your reference if it was something that you wanted to be able to look at the comprehensive requirement. I would also mention that we're going to be opening a discussion with Brant's coming up, so that one of the reasons we're bringing you a resolution tonight is that there are going to be other franchise provisions, including a rate study that coming up in 2023 we'll have a chance to look at other aspects of Brant's franchise. But for tonight, we chose coming into compliance with DEQ regulations as the thing we could do by resolution and bring to you now. But there will be other considerations related to the services and the franchise coming up in 2023.
This isn't our last visit with Josh.
Unfortunately.
In the coming months, Councillor Belt.
I've noticed in the staff report, it says, if the resolution is approved, Brant's will proceed to implement added services. There's commercial recycling, which you mentioned, residential food waste, but also recycling services for multi-family units. So are you actually going to add on top of what is being asked?
Good evening. It's very nice to see all of you. That we currently already offer that service. The reason why DEQ doesn't give us credit for it is that has to be an ordinance, I'm going to say resolution, I don't know if that's the right word, into it. So that would be above and beyond. So when I chatted with you several months ago, we have actually always been doing 7 and we were only required to do 4. So the reason why we adjusted that is just that's something that we can address as we talk. Maybe we go through some of the rate study and the ordinance. Then at that time, as we're doing some of that rewording, maybe writing more things down, we can address it then. But to get compliant, the sooner the better from DEQ. This is the easiest route towards that. However, we are still providing that service.
And I'm sorry, the mayor just pointed out that there was an amendment that I didn't get. I wasn't reading that.
And we won't stop that.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Thrilled
Thank
that you're offering more than the minimum.
Councillor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you very much for coming to speak with us tonight. My experience and those that I speak with's experience with Brant's has always been very positive. I feel you serve our community incredibly well, and the fact that you're already engaging in above and beyond aspects in 7 as opposed to the required 4 is another evidence of that. Greatly appreciated, and looking at this, I think it has my full support. Separate from that, I'm asking for just a brief update tied to this. Last time we saw you, I believe we were talking about the state of recycling and some of the successes and also challenges that we were facing regarding recycling. Some potential things that were creating problems with you. If we add recycling in a couple other elements of what's required by statute, how does that impact you? And I guess, where is recycling going? Could you give me just a little update on where we stand?
Yeah, of course. So one of the hardest, or one of the biggest obstacles that we have to face is contamination. So A lot of the times you see that in larger scale commercial, multi-house dwelling, residential spots. Not because people don't try, it's just a very difficult thing to manage and deal with. Making it a priority is great. A lot of people work hard. Again, I'm not discrediting commercial or that, but our largest issue still is controlling that separation stream. And in that, it hasn't gotten much better from a state perspective when it comes to contamination or the price. So recently, in the last 2 months, commingle skyrocketed, which is our curbside recycling, skyrocketed back up to $136 a ton. That doesn't see a projected change until the middle of 2023. On top of that, cardboard, which seems to be absolutely everywhere, that has actually fallen apart as well. That's something that we used to get on range from $0 a ton to 40 on probably an average of about 15 throughout a year. We are currently paying $50 a ton to get rid of cardboard. So our recycling costs are through the roof. That's be part of a different study, but as to just kind of lay it out there, you know, one of the things that hurts with that, and what I try to encourage customers to do, is it used to be to self-separate that cardboard. We used to get money for that. Unfortunately, now that stream's lost, and with a 24-hour recycling center, unfortunately, you see a lot of other communities making adjustments already. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see that recycling center overflowing with cardboard, as recycling centers have drastically changed their hours. It's something that we've always done. It's something the community's always enjoyed. I am totally fine continuing that. It's something we do. Of course, that's time for another discussion. So the good thing is from a state level and a national level, but mainly from the state level, there's still a lot of people working hard. One thing that's getting implemented in 2023 is there's a tax. I don't know a ton of the verbiage on this, but it kind of helps anybody that's going to sell material in the state of Oregon has to put into this. And hopefully that money from some of the big box stores, anybody generating a large scale of waste, even though they're recyclables, then some of that money will be allocated to cities throughout for recycling programs, to processors, to hopefully help level out some of those rising costs that right now just continue. There was a little bit of a dip, but now we're back through the roof on that. So that's kind of the main thing. And, I like to reiterate, these aren't Brandt's decisions from a recycling standpoint. I'm happy to talk about it all the time, but again, it's a processor's problem, it's a state problem, it's a national problem, and it's a world problem. And so I just try to do the best job to manage that on scale. And part of that is, again, next year's 70 years in Monmouth and independence. And we pride ourselves on that. And part of that is, just trying to do the best we can. And I haven't implemented contamination fees. We do search through a few more recycling containers that frustrate some. But it's more of just to keep ourselves and the community in check a little bit, so we're doing our job. As for the food waste, that rate, including everything Republic owns, from the landfill to the PRC, have all increased every year for the last 4 years. That increased again this year. So that would fall under our green waste, that rate increase. So there is additional costs to food waste because it does add to the weight. So I don't have a study for that. I have reached out to several other haulers. It ends up being about 1%. so it's not huge. The weight could be the different story. The great thing is we're so close. We're the closest hauler to those processing, which drastically helps with fuel costs up and that such. However, the things that will is, for instance, trucks can handle for yard waste in the summer about 500 carts a day. In the winter, or I shouldn't say winter, in the springtime when things are heavy and wet, it's about 250. So you add that many more trips to the PRC, and there's some increases in that. However, from getting that, from recycling that material that we actually haven't had the process unless you chose to do it yourself in your backyard. But from a city perspective, I think it's a great thing to add. A lot of communities have added that. It's an easy implementation, but I think people at home would enjoy that. That, now they can put, it used to say if it grows, it goes. That way you can put in. Now it would literally include all.
That's great.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. And as the resident recycling police in my household, you've given me some additional fodder here to be able to use. I'm constantly going through and finding those bottles with the caps still attached.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Other questions for Josh? All right, we do have a motion.
I can go ahead with that motion.
Yes, that would be great.
Thank you for staying to do this. I really appreciate your time.
Last man sitting. Everybody else.
Yeah.
Party left on me, I guess.
Everybody left. So I move to approve Resolution 1959 directing Brant Sanitary Service to provide opportunity to recycle elements in accordance with ORS 459A.0925, 459.045, and 468.020.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Salinas Oliveros for the motion and Councilor Lopez for the second. Any last thoughts or questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Phyllis, please take the roll call on resolution number 1959.
Councilor Oberst.
Yes.
Councilor Lopez.
Aye.
Councilor Beltz.
Yes.
Councilor Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
Councilor Carey.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. At this time then, if we can take a brief break and come back for our last two items on the business agenda. We do have a work session item scheduled for discussion and some regular reports. So we'll try to make it brief. I have 8:39. If we can really try to be back by 8:45, that would be all right. And we will return. This was actually item number 3 on our business agenda. If our lovely city recorder, Phyllis Bowman, is with us. We have some official election business to do.
Mayor and City Council, am I on? Okay, sorry. Okay. Our charter requires that I read the canvass of the vote into the record. So the canvass of vote is follows from the November 28th, 2022 election. Votes for Mayor, City of Monmouth, Cecilia Kuntz, 2,553. Write-in totals 180. 1 overvote, 1,041 overvotes. Total votes were 3,775. So Cecilia Kuntz is elected mayor for another 2-year term. For City Council, John Kerry received 2,407 votes. Roxanne Beltz received 2,330. Chris Lopez, 2,329. Write-in totals were 232 for a total votes cast of 7,298 and 4,027 undervotes. The total votes were 11,325. So John Kerry, Roxanne Beltz, and Christopher Lopez are elected to 4-year terms as city councilors.
Good job, Mayor and councilors. Congratulations.
And as Councilor Lopez can tell you, every vote counts.
That's right. Sorry, Chris, I forgot to vote for you.
I think I knew that Sarah was upset at me that night.
Yeah, it's,
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis, very much. And thanks, everybody. It's pretty exciting. Looking forward to the work. And speaking of work, we will now move on to consider our second reading and adoption of the Minot franchise agreement. And Marty?
Thank you. Mayor and Council, tonight you have before you consideration of second reading and adoption of Ordinance 1406. You might recall back on November 15th that we talked through the proposed renewal of the franchise agreement for Minot. At the time of your discussion, there were a couple of outstanding questions that have been clarified, and those have been corrected in the franchise agreement before you. It included some missing language in Section 3. Ensuring that we were confirming what the franchise fee rate is, and 7% is correct. And also, I think those were the only two questions that were raised on the night of first reading. Overall, most of the terms of the franchise agreement with Minot remain unchanged, although it looks like an extensive set of updates from the existing agreement because we have done a lot to remove references to TV services and some of the other some changes that have taken place with Minot over time. So I would entertain any questions you have about the amended franchise, and there's a proposed motion for second reading in your packet.
Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Potentially two items I have for you. First, I'd like to clarify my position on this. Am I permitted to vote on this? I am the city's representative to Minot and sit on the Minot board. I believe that I am, but I'd like clarity.
Well, I assume that's an unpaid position. Yeah, so I think you're okay on that.
Fantastic. I had assumed that would be the answer, but thank you very much for clarifying. My second comment on the proposed motion is that this is all this has been long overdue, and this really puts both our house and Minot's house in order, and I'm grateful that this is before us to pass.
Are you so grateful you'd like to make a motion?
I am so grateful I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve Ordinance 1406 relating to communication services in the City of Monmouth and granting to Monmouth Independence Network a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a communications system within the city. Amending Monmouth City Code, Section 13.30.010, and repealing Ordinance 1342 and Ordinance 1224 and all prior and conflicting ordinances.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Lopez, for the motion. Councilor Beltz for the second. And any last minute questions? All right. Phyllis, can we please get the roll call on the vote?
Councilor Kerry.
Aye.
Councilor Oberst.
Yes.
Councilor Salinas Oliveros.
Aye.
Councilor Beltz.
Aye.
Councilor Lopez.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. We shall go forth and sign off on that and get that thing in place. Thanks very much, Marty, for all your work on that. All right, we have one work session item, and that is a proposal that has been developed by it came out of the Oregon Mayors Association, and really a call to all mayors to participate and give feedback. But there really ended up sort of being a really wide-ranging group of mayors who put together some work sessions on this and have released what they would like. Really hear comment, question, and discussions that would go forward to become a legislative concept and hopefully start to address the issue of houseless community members and homelessness at the local level, where we often end up really taking care of these things. And Marty has been following this as well as part of her professional associations. So I'm going to let you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't actually have very much to add. I appreciate the context about the Oregon Mayors Association proposal. Really, this is on the agenda for your discussion tonight, for council's discussion, because some of you had heard about this proposal and wanted to be able to discuss it. I think you have two questions before you at this time. One is whether, as a council or as a city, you'd like for Monmouth to take a position of support or no action related to the proposal as it heads into the legislative session. The other is the League of Oregon Cities made a call for projects, capital projects that could be included on a list that might be suggested to legislators focused on anything the community might invest in from a capital project perspective that might address homelessness as it would affect our community in particular. So really, I was hoping to tee this question up for you all to have a discussion about. I attached the Oregon Mayors Association proposal, which comes in two parts. One is a per capita allocation that would focus on serving people who are experiencing homelessness, and the other is a proposal of funding to the legislature for those capital projects that I just mentioned. So I'd be interested to hear your perspective about anything you'd like to say about this proposal as we head into the legislative session.
I have a question. So on this proposal, are we agreeing to, if we agree to support this proposal, it's for the amount of money that would be allocated to our city, and then do we have control over how that is best used for our residents and for our community? So I guess I'm trying to figure out, we're not really agreeing to one specific idea. It's more agreeing to, yes, we will use these funds to support our community, and we will come up with what that looks like depending on our needs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The proposal states that the funds would have to be used for certain kinds of services.
Okay.
And it gives examples, but that is, again, permissive, not mandatory. That is the theory. I mean, the mayors are saying we know what's best locally, and having statewide solutions that are solutions that help Portland don't help us. And so the proposal is completely based in local control. Give us the dollars. We know what to do with them. Ask us later how we did it and how it worked, but don't tell us what to do.
So, yep. Do we have, is this like a grant? Do we have reporting? Do we have deadlines? Has any of that been determined? Like, will they say, oh, you haven't used it, or, or do we have this for an infinite amount of time?
None of that's been developed.
None of that has.
That would all come through administration.
Okay, after, okay.
What you're reading here is the sum total.
Is that all that we have?
The proposal's been structured so far. So all of the questions about administration,
we just don't know yet.
The funding would be determined.
We would want to report back to the legislature
Yes,
about our
of
work.
course.
That is our goal, right? We know we can prove that we can make an impact if you let us do this.
Yeah, so we just don't have the parameters.
But we
have
don't
this.
have any.
Got it. Okay.
Councillor Opers, thank you.
So I would just tag on to Councillor Salinas Oliveros' question that while the proposal is we get to do what we see it best, we're dealing with the legislature here, and one never knows what might come out the other end when it's all said and done. The same would be true on reporting requirements. Chances are, yes, we will have to report to the penny where we put this money and document that it has a positive impact. One would hope that they will take a proposal like this and see its value and allow the communities to do what they see fit. But the legislature can be perverse that way sometimes, so one never knows. And I would also just like to hear, because of Chris's deep involvement with the homeless issue, how this is rattling around for you. How do you feel about this proposal, and do you see it having good outcome?
John, did you have a question?
No, go ahead. I
ahead.
defer to
Okay.
if Chris would like to.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And while I do engage in this kind of work fairly often, I'm far from an expert. I posit that there are no experts in this arena in this room currently, and so take my words with a grain of salt and as my own. That said, I have engaged in some level of serving the homeless community since I was a kid in multiple different avenues, and this gives me some heartburn. It's not without a real conflicted heart that I say this, but this proposal gives me some heartburn. And there's a few reasons for that. I'd hesitate to rank them, so I'll just give you them in the order that they come off the top of my head. The first is, my point that no one here is an expert in this. I don't believe that most cities are fundamentally well equipped to handle homelessness issues on their own. And this is essentially just a taxpayer check to cities saying, here's some money, we're going to throw it at it. Where I do see value is through community partnerships. And that makes me, that makes my mind go to my second point, House Bill 4123 that passed in a previous legislative session, creating a number of pilot projects throughout the state, of which we partnered with Polk County to partake in that. I'd love to see the results of that. I have to imagine that those results will be positive. We've seen a lot of work go into that thus far. Would these funds help those efforts? They absolutely would, and that's why I'm so conflicted with this. But just writing a check, trying to answer these issues, I don't see it as the thoughtful and intentional solution that these issues need. We tend to lump homelessness issues into a single word, homelessness, right? Homelessness is a result, is the product of other societal challenges that we face and that people and our neighbors, our community faces. So it's immensely complex, is what I'm saying. That partnership is what I'd like to see. What I'd like to see really grow. Now that assumes it's a zero-sum game. I fully recognize it's not, and looking at it not being a zero-sum game, but we do nonetheless have dollar figures here. I'm going to pick on some of our larger neighbors, and note that under this plan it is $40 per per resident based on census levels. Salem would receive $7 million under this plan. Our other neighbor, Falls City, with amongst the highest per capita homelessness rates in the state, receives $50,000, and that hurts me. If we look at comparisons between Salem and Falls City as well, Salem receives funding to address homelessness issues directly from HUD. Smaller cities do not. And so there's a number of areas where I feel this isn't as well thought out as as I'd like it to be. Are they on a positive track? I believe so. Does this need more work before I really feel comfortable supporting it? Yeah, I really think it does, as much as it hurts me to say that. So that's where I stand.
Councilor Carey.
I think we're getting embedded in things that really we ought not to at the moment. As Councilor Ober said, this is going to go to the legislature, and whether they enact any of it or not, who knows, and what it'll look like when it comes out the other end is difficult to say. So I think the question is, do we believe that there ought to be some sort of local funding that comes back to the cities to be able to deal with the homeless situation in quotes? Now, and I concur, we're not, as City of Monmouth, we are not structured or positioned to be able to really do anything really significant at the moment. However, community partners that you referenced are well engaged, and there's clearly in the proposal here, that's one of the things that these guys, if there are no experts, they're the closest things that there is. I don't know that we. When I read it more. Is this something, because we are the one, the local level, and the mayor had it right, the local level is the ones can solve it. And there's some things that we could do for housing and other things, with some of our tax relief, some of our SDCs, but we've got to have backup for that. We can't do that without it. This is the kind of thing that is starting in that direction. I personally, just as a
Up to which is what it is.
yeah. Let's just
Concept.
go forth and lobby the legislature.
Yeah.
Councilor Salinas Oliveros.
Yes, thank you. It is really ambiguous right now. Like this is just an idea, and realistically, the legislature could just say, no, we're not going to give you money for you to figure it out. Or it could go through multiple steps of changes. We just don't know. And yes, and I do see this as, going in a positive direction. I do see the inequities in it between how much is distributed from city to city. It is inequitable, but how do you meet that equitable standard, and who's the judge of that, and how do you measure that? That's very difficult. I think the city of Monmouth is in a really good position with the data, with the research, with the work that we've been doing about our community, who lives here, what type of housing is needed, the partnerships and teams that are already in place that involve all the different departments and services in our communities, I think is an excellent start. And we already have those partnerships, and we're continuing to build more. As part of the, we just got a new acronym, as part of the Partners Allied Towards Housing Solutions, PASS. That's what we are calling ourselves. That is also a partnership that is across Polk County that we can bring in and use, and we are working with a consultant and looking, and so I think that yes, there are many unknowns and difficulties to this, and there's a lot of things that we can't control. We have no idea what the legislature is going to say, But if we can offset some of the costs from the work that we are doing and bring in the people who know what's happening with our community, how to work with homelessness, doing those partnerships. I learned about the United Way, that is another partner, and they're helping Dallas, and they're taking on a project, and they're paying another half of that because they have the money to. And so they came to present about that, and that's another partnership. And so I think just like, the solutions part of it, we're trying to find those solutions. And yes, the money distributed is going to be not equitable because I don't think anybody knows how to do that at this point. I am willing to take that chance, to take that risk in that this is going to be positive, and that if we are granted money, that we are smart enough to know how to help our community and do the best, and to know what we can and can't do. What do we know? What do we need to know? What are our limitations? But we all have the same intentions at heart. We all want to help our houseless community, our homeless community. We want to help those who are in need. We want to make our community better. And you can't do that without money. And so it's like you can't do anything for nothing. And so I am apt to jump in the pool and just say, let's just do this, say yes, and see what happens, because we have no idea what the legislature is going to do. But if we have that local control, then maybe as a team and with our other partners, we can come up with some kind of solution.
Yeah.
So it's
Belt.
Well, knowing that this is coming from all the mayors, and again, no one's an expert. None of us are experts. None of them are experts. However, there's this bucket of money, for lack of a better word, that needs to be divided somehow. I think given I've been in positions before where I've had to allocate funds in different places, and it's just, there is no good answer. The one thing I can say is that I trust our mayor, and I trust our mayors in general within these communities. So I'm good with that. Looking at the list where it's right above the dollar amounts where it says proposed state, the funds must be used for homeless response. There's a lot of options in here. I mean, we know that the Ella Kern Food Bank is trying to find a building. I mean, I'm not saying that this is what we do, but maybe all the money goes to them to build to get a new building. We can't build affordable housing with $250,000, but there are ways. I think it's not just, I just think there's a good variety here. Maybe it's just cleaning up a homeless camp. Maybe it's just more community resource officers, whatever it is. Maybe it's saying to Polk County, okay, we've been doing this work with you. What else can we do together? So I like the idea of kind of home decision.
Yeah.
I like it being our opportunity to decide. And let's talk to the community and find out. I mean, we know we'll get a million answers, but find out what do people see that we don't see. That's my 10 cents.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Lopez.
Now that we've all had a chance to go a little bit around the room, I'll add some additional color. I think it's wonderful that there's faith in the ability of the mayors to come up with something positive. I believe wholeheartedly in our mayor. I really do.
Have anything.
I really do.
But thank God.
But
oh yeah,
wasn't involved in this, and I don't have that blanket blind belief in the abilities of mayors to be able to make these decisions. I had direct conversations with a couple of the mayors that had hatched this concept, and through conversations with them, I know that best practices in terms of crafting homelessness solutions were not followed. There was not involvement with individuals of lived experience in homelessness. That's an established best practice that's required by HUD for any level of HUD funding at this point, and it's a well-known one. And without going into, into too much detail, I believe that they really overlooked a lot of wonderful resources that were at their fingertips to be able to call upon for the sake of being able to just put something together and push it through. And I do understand the value of pushing things forward. I don't believe that this was thoughtfully crafted. And I wish that I did. It hurts me to say that. And I hear talk about the things that we would do as a community. And I do believe that we would do great things as a community. We are, we're active participants in our, relatively newly formed continuum of care. We are active participants in Paths. Wonderful. I'm glad that we have a name for our, rural homelessness prevention work group, what have you. Polk County Rural Homelessness Prevention Work Group is what it used to be called. And
Yes.
what a mouthful.
House
And
Bill 4123 work group. Then
Yes.
Polk County.
So I, while I firmly believe that our community needs this funding, when I'm asked if I was to be asked if our community needs this, I'd say yes, we could do great things with it. We're positioned to do positive things with it. If I'm asked to support it as a bill, I think my stance shifts, right? And the question to me isn't, hey, would you be able to do great things with this? It's, do you as a city support this as a bill? And, as an elected representative of my city, I can't in good conscience support it. I understand if we all collectively move in a different way, and I fully respect that, but my own view is that I can't in good consciousness support it.
And I'll just mention that this list, as you say, was absolutely a brainstorm list by a group of mayors, and not intended to be the list or in any way the solution. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why the list has we talked about causes and appearances of homelessness or of impacts of homelessness and outcomes of homelessness. What they were trying to say, I think, is we would love people to be able to address the entire spectrum. So we're looking at causes, right? We're looking at affordable housing. We're looking at education and outreach. We're looking at impact, environmental cleanup, right? We're looking at outcomes. Once they're homeless, then what do we do? Outreach, prevention, hygiene stations. So I think that's the intent, is much more to say anything along the spectrum, as long as it is dealing with our populations who are living on the streets or nearly living on the streets, we want the flexibility to be.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way on earth the legislature would say, okay, just random list, go for it.
Exactly.
There is absolutely no way this money won't come with some more definition. And as you say, I think in some cases we would welcome that structure for some of our fellow communities who haven't thought this through, who aren't involved in the efforts we are involved in, fortunately, because of the Mary Polk continuum of care, which, remember, 70% of the rest of the counties are in the statewide continuum of care. They don't talk about this in their county at all because they are just part of the bulk in the state who get HUD funding. So I feel confident there's going to be a lot more discussion about what those parameters might be and how, see, for example, the school districts, right? We're given a new source of funding, Student Success Act. All new funds raised, all new ways for schools to do this. There was an absolute requirement to get community input. And it was very structured. And it is not one time, it is every year you have to go back out and get feedback. How are we addressing the problems, and are the way we're addressing the problems, right? Are these the right problems, and how are our solutions going for you?
Yeah.
So I have a feeling there'd be a lot more structure around this if it goes through. If there's any money to go through. And as far as the equity thing, I do want to point out, right, that these smaller communities, we mentioned 50,000. They wouldn't get that much if it was a pure per capita allocation.
Yeah.
The Mayor's Coalition said you can't do anything with $2,000, right? So if you only have
50 people. If you're at,
people, you're not going to. So this 50,000 number was settled on as something that will make an actual impact in Falls City. More so.
Some impact.
They're $40 per. Yeah, Councilor Carrion and Councilor.
As you know, what they're requesting here is that they can add the city of Monmouth as one of the supporters of this concept. That's one of the asks. There's another ask that Marty's going to get to in a minute, but that's one of the asks. And so any detail here is likely going to end up on the committee room floor. Now, that being said, and I've seen this, and I saw it dramatically in Portland last spring. I see it in Salem some. When there are proposals to move forward, there are quicker criticisms than there are support. We've got to be careful that we don't make, great can't be the enemy of good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's not going to be the finished, genuine article at the end. But we got to have a start on this. And that, the deal in Portland, that Dan Ryan had a great plan that was worth discussion. Man, he got rained on like nobody's business. He was just like a Nazi concentration camp and other things. So let's not get in the way of perfect. That can't stop us from moving forward. And I don't think we'll get there, but
no. Yeah, I'm not trying to let that happen. I think back, we've spoken about House Bill 4123, and we were asked to support that, and then we were separately asked to apply to be a portion of the pilot project. I'll remind you, when we were asked to support it and we gave it some scrutiny, we gave it our support, there was a structure, there was a draft bill. It was, it wasn't fully baked, but it was closer to fully baked than unbaked. And this is not saying that it's not the right direction. Oh gosh, it hurts to support something that's as unbaked as, and having trouble attributing other words, but that's as unbaked as this, right? We scrutinized and supported that, and it had some levels of detail. Yes, it changes. Yes, it always changes. But we need to see more. And if we're asking, I'll note that it doesn't. If we're asking for 124,000 or $124 million annually from the state for homelessness funding, and that's one portion of this two-pronged bill. I'd like to see more before I put my name behind it.
Sorry, John, it's 9:20.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and
I'll cut it off. You all
just get a consensus thought from folks about, does Monmouth support this?
Yeah.
Right?
Let me just throw in a couple of really quick ideas. One, ODOT has a thing called the small city allotment, which is a way that small cities can get money beyond their normal allotment. LOC has fought really hard to raise that amount so that the small cities can get more. An approach like that added into a bill like this would be great. This is a framework. The finished product is going to look nothing like this. And you refer to it as being unbaked. I've got my Christmas cookies at home that are unbaked. In fact, they're so unbaked, some of the ingredients are still at the grocery store.
That's
where this is in my mind. This is my Christmas cookies. This is at least a recipe that is going to be subject to modification, new ingredients. Let's add a couple of flavors over here. Let's say, Salem, you get money from HUD, so you get a little less than this proposal initially puts in. And cities like Falls City.
Yeah, because those really are details we're not going to.
No, I know. I'm just giving an example. See, so
I just want to get a
small money, small cities with high proportions of homeless can get more. Things like that are what going to come out.
Yeah.
So that's where I would be supporting this as a result.
So can I get sense thumbs up if you are interested in us putting our name on the list to go forward with this, and those opposed? Thanks. Thank you for your thoughts, Chris.
Of course.
100% agree.
And I appreciate you all.
May I?
Yes.
I apologize to not lengthen the discussion, but there was a second part of this
There is.
proposal, and it
That's
has
what
to
we're
do with if you were headed there, Mayor, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Interject. But the second part of the ask from League of Oregon Cities in the world of lists that we might be on, if there were ideas about local capital projects we would invest in addressing homelessness, we can, again, conceptually name them. And so if there are any projects that you can think of that you know of, whether they fall onto a list of what falls into these kinds of services or, again, capital investments that would support those things, we can also convey that message to League of Oregon Cities. I mean, I think some of this request is in service to the League, giving examples of the way localities are looking to address homelessness. So if you have projects in mind and you want to name any of them, I can also pass that along.
Yes.
I know that this is going to seem out of place given the commentary that I just made, but yes, I have a couple projects in mind. And one of them, really low-hanging fruit, would be utilizing our collaboration with the county outside of the House Bill 4123 to stand up the annex and give community support through.
So the resource center wouldn't be a capital request unless you're talking about helping them build a building.
Yes. Yes. So ultimately that location was a something we settled on, right? I think it'd be great to build infrastructure around it. And
they still have a proposal on the table to build Fulton County Community and Family Outreach building.
I know.
So
I know.
And I'm sure that they would welcome a contribution to their capital investment.
But that was something that was already, and I use it as an example because it's not tied with House Bill 4123. It's become tied with it, but it predated it. Right. And so, utilizing this to build, to stand up an office, build infrastructure, to support those causes would be fantastic.
Yep, that's a great idea. Okay. Others?
Yes, and maybe this, thank you, Mayor, and maybe this goes along with what Chris was saying, but having youth, it's temporary housing for displaced homeless youth. And when I went to visit Taylor House, and they shared a story of a local student who is living there, and they transport them here every day for school to the high school. And it would be nice if that individual, and it's because they had a family member who would not take them in. And so they are homeless. And it would be nice for them not to have to go to Salem and be transported here to high school and then go back to Salem. So I I briefly heard that there might be something in the works. I don't know, but to have, and this is with resources. So it's not, you have social workers, you have people really trying to connect them with colleges and skills, and because they're trying to transition them out to be successful adults that can maintain their own lives. And so something of that nature would be, I think would be really important. And connecting all those different services to mental health, to, hey, let's apply for financial aid, or
definitely is that project.
Okay.
Marty's met with
Community action.
Community action.
Yes.
Okay.
So there, I mean, I could imagine that we as a city could help contribute to a project like that if they were, they would be a community partner we would work with.
Okay.
So, and I'll mention another one. I think we really got the sense from our housing needs, looking at ways to encourage or invest in actual home ownership. And Marty and Suzanne have a meeting next week, sometime.
Eventually.
With Habitat for Humanity, the executive director and their projects manager for Marion Polk County, talking about opportunities they are in a position to acquire land, and so supporting that, helping move in some habitat, for example, might be another one we might name in our letter if everyone's amenable to that.
We heard about maybe a couple of the churches locally having land available that they might be willing to put some transitional housing on.
That's what's part of that.
Yeah,
That's part of that.
I think about the S Curve Church as an example, and we got a couple of churches out West Church, which I hate to go out there that direction just because it's out away from town.
But that's so if folks are okay with listing that as one of our
Sure.
potentials, partnering with again.
Either helping build them or helping run them, something.
Waive their SDCs or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Chris?
Expanding on the concept of those community partnerships, there is one church that I know of in town that is that has been doing some capital improvements locally to provide shower space and space for individuals to wash and dry clothes, to charge devices. Capital support for projects like that would be fantastic.
And those are listed here as sanitation or hygiene stations.
Yeah.
So support.
I think we could lump that into a capital project proposal.
Roxanne?
I would definitely support this idea of supporting transitional housing. Youth, let's see, what is it? 70% of homeless adults were homeless as children. So I understand that is very significant for youth. However, there are many adults that are homeless or close to homeless because of circumstance, and they simply cannot get out of the situation that they're in without having a stable place to live. So that transitional housing with counseling, with support, with help, and the waiting lists for housing for individuals in that situation are about 18 to 24 months right now. And so where are those people waiting? So that's a huge concern for me. So thank you, transitional.
Is that a good enough list that we can just put those?
That's good.
If it meets the definition of capital construction. I don't know whether
anything contributing to cap. So our waiving SDCs would contribute to be a capital expenditure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're just talking not people in operation.
Yeah, the devil's in the details on all of this stuff, and we're talking conceptually here.
That's what I've been saying the whole time.
I'll put together a letter that conveys our city's support and these project ideas as potential local capital investments we could make. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to a couple of report items, and I'm going to just make a brief mayor's report. I really want to thank our Monmouth Business Association with support from the Monmouth Independence Chamber for Making Spirits Bright. On Saturday, we had a really great new format for that where folks were doing pop-up businesses inside our local businesses. They seemed very pleased. I also got to judge the Polk County Fire District Chili Cook-Off. I highly recommend that for everyone in the future, but finally it was good weather. We had a beautiful tree lighting Friday night and then a great Making Spirits Bright. So just want to thank all the folks who were involved in those, all the work that goes into putting stuff on. And just to say that I got several vendors excited about the Peacock Festival.
Yay, thank you.
To be making new peacock stuff. So highly recommend that. But that was
that's on my list of
great
things to do.
Yeah, great opportunities. Good fun way to kick off December, and here we are. At this time, then, reports of council boards and commissions. First of all, we do have some appointments to consider. Two of them were included in, Phyllis had emailed them at a couple different times. So I'm going to review those for you. We had Glenda Brown had indicated interest in the Arts and Culture Commission, a lifelong love and interest in the arts, both visual and performing, and really talked about sort of her artistic outlet and passion, and talked about fabric art and some of the things she's interested in there, but how she would really like to encourage participation in the arts community and support that group. So that was a nomination. And the second was Amy Lemko Yaramio. She actually put the Historic Commission as her first choice and Arts and Culture as second. Both of these people are in Monmouth. Amy indicated that she believes that being involved in local endeavors and leadership in preservation, beautification, regional education is a significant way to make an impact on the community, society, and future generations. She cited her degree in history and creative writing. She is a contracted author, so very interested in writing about history and creating long-term displays, pamphlets, nonfiction books, or historical fiction books set in Monmouth to help support and promote. So I would accept a motion on one or both of those appointments.
So moved both.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst for the motion and Councilor Salinas for the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I see none opposed, so we'll get those folks attached to those boards and commissions. Also, the term of our city representative to the MyNet board, David Ritchie, who you met tonight, has been the original Monmouth member of the MyNet board. His term is up. I believe he's not expressed that he would like to leave, but I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on opening that position up, taking applications much as we have with our other boards and commissions, and seeing if there's an opportunity to increase our representation on that board. So I would like to propose that we do so, to go ahead and ask David to reapply, but see if we have other folks interested as we try to diversify our representation.
I like institutional memory, but I also think that fresh blood and new ideas have a place in the world as well. I think it'd be a good idea to at least see if there's anybody else in the community that would like to take that position. I thought we had somebody else initially, and then David came in, but I could be wrong.
We did. We had Art Burkholter.
Right.
Our original member before David.
Okay, so David wasn't our original.
But he's been there. He's been there since early in my mayoral.
Has been, and he's been chair of the board and really does have that institutional knowledge. Also, we are at such a different sort of point in MyNet's growth that
New director, it'd be good to have the old memories sitting there still, but at the same time.
We have some. We have other folks that are continuing.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor Lopez.
Yeah, just while we're speaking of Mr. Ritchie, I'd just like to underline that, you know, he has been a fantastic member of the MINET board, and you know, he's brought us a long way, and he's given some fantastic service. I think you know, giving him an opportunity to perhaps take a breather may be interesting as well. And as the mayor pointed out, we would welcome him to reapply. Certainly, he has given so much of himself to this city, both through MINET as well as through being a reserve police officer. Really, truly a wonderful human being, and huge debt of gratitude toward him.
I would like to do a quick turnaround on this, so I'm going to ask folks if we'll have Phyllis, have the application available. People can contact her, get on the website. But if you have folks you think might be interested, let's try and make this appointment at the first meeting in January. If we have multiple applicants, I might ask a couple people, including the current council liaison and board member, to help us kind of interview folks. Yes.
Madam Mayor, will you undertake the communication with Mr. Ritchie in the interim?
Yep.
Great. We owe him that chairman.
No, he works. My understanding is he's gone in there when they've been doing conversions and things.
Yeah.
He is hands-on. He has technical knowledge, and he's really given a lot to that.
Yeah.
So, nope, we definitely are honoring that. And again, he may want to keep doing it. Okay, thank you for that. So other boards and commission reports at this time. Councilor Obers.
Last night was traffic safety, so it was my second meeting in a row. 2 nights running. The first good news, we put in for a Safe Routes to School construction grant, as you may recall, and there were 82 applicants. It's down to 56. We're one of them.
Yay.
So there's 56 folks after, so it's about 2/3 that have passed through, and that's the sort of the initial screen. But my experience working on ODOT funding these things is once it gets through the initial screen, most folks after that initial screen get full or close to full funding. There's the occasion where there's not enough money to go around, and some folks may get a little less than they asked for, but that's still better than nothing. So we will keep our fingers crossed for our full funding. We had a gentleman who uses a handicap accessible van, and he has the problem of a sloped driveway where if he gets out facing up his driveway, he can't drive off the ramp. And if he gets out facing downhill, it's a pretty fast run to the street. And if he gets off on the curb, his ramp is wide as the sidewalk. So he has to drive off into the grass. So he's been parking facing the wrong way and unloading into the street. And he was wondering about some kind of parking zone or something. Russ came up with a solution of basically widening the sidewalk a little bit and giving him enough room to put the ramp out and still get out. And I thought that was a great solution on his part. I took off my council rep hat long enough and put on my citizen hat to request at least a discussion around if we put in the proposed rapid rectangular flashing beacon at Madrona. One of my concerns is, I saw this happen downtown. This is what triggered this for me. A gentleman was crossing one of the side streets, Broad maybe, and there was somebody driving west on Main wanting to make a left, and her focus was on the oncoming traffic. And as soon as the oncoming traffic cleared, she made her turn. And he was partway across the street. And he was quick. He jumped back. Literally jumped back and was, she hit the brakes. Nobody was hurt. But I'm imagining southbound drivers on 99 waiting for the traffic to clear to turn into Madrona, and their focus is on the oncoming northbound traffic on 99. So we had a long discussion over how do we handle this, and I was advocating let's urge people to cross at Southgate or so instead of right at the intersection of 99. we're going to watch and see what happens and see how that develops. But it's a point of concern at that intersection. And then finally, we talked a little bit more about the idea of a bike rodeo with the elementary schools, and we're going to start reaching out to the school district, to the schools. One of our members knows someone in Salem who's an absolute pro on bike rodeos. Counselor Belson is the same person, so maybe she needs to be there.
The Safe Routes to School program coordinator
Right.
at the COG should be involved as well.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll continue working forward on those things. Next meeting will be first Monday in March, which I think is the 6th. Quarterly meetings on that. So that's it.
Thanks. Other boards and commission meetings? Yes, Councilor Lopez and then Councilor Carey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to foreshadow the next Homeless Alliance meeting. The Alliance meets on Thursday at 3 p.m. With the recognition that we ourselves, have a staggered meeting schedule with the holidays. Wanted to put this on your radar. The 2023 point in time count, also known as the PIT count. We are still formulating a finalized community response to this and community plan to this. However, one large portion of it will be involvement by the community. We're looking for both for volunteers, both here in Monmouth to do the count. Counting will take place on Tuesday, January 24th, Wednesday, January 25th, and Saturday, January 28th. In conjunction with that, we will also be supporting the county in a Community Connect event that'll be hosted in Dallas proper. Transportation will be provided for houseless individuals to that event. There will be multiple service providers with wraparound services there at that event. It's a really wonderful, wonderful vision that the county's put together, and really glad that we're taking this multi-pronged approach with the count. Historically, and this is not just here, but nationwide, the PIT count, HUD estimates an undercount of between 50 and 80% undercount. So acknowledging that under best case scenario, you're only ever counting 50% of the houseless individuals in a community. But even communities that quote unquote succeed with this, oftentimes, only count 20% of the individuals in the community. So, getting as many feet on the ground and as many individuals involved really is critical. And I encourage you all to look for information in your email as soon as it happens. There's a meeting on the 13th with the PIT count work group that will finalize some details. At that point, I'll forward finalized information out to you all. And please help me spread the word. We're looking for volunteers. One point of note, if you do go to the Homeless Alliance website right now, there is a PIT count page. If you follow the links to the Polk County and to the Monmouth signups, some of the information there's a little wonky. There's some corrections needed. Right now it states that we're looking for 40 people per day to help count. I think there was some translation errors. That's certainly not the case in Monmouth. We'd love 10 people per day, not 40. And Saturday was left off. So once again, my apologies for not sharing this yet when it's in its draft form, but please keep an eye out for that. The results of this count are utilized by service providers far and wide, and it's one of the critical numbers that HUD looks at when it's looking at our funding through the continuum. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Carey.
Planning Commission met on the 16th of November, and I did not attend. There was a conditional use that is likely to, has the potential to be ultimately referred to us. Not sure that it will. Haven't seen the outcome. Haven't seen the minutes. Haven't been posted yet. So I don't know, but so just I decided not to entangle myself at the moment. Hopefully we don't hear anything and it's been, we'll see.
And the Senior Advisory Board met today. I'm going to remind you that I'll be reaching out to each of you to talk about changing board and commission assignments. And so be thinking about that, but I need to let you know I set the bar pretty high. I provided a lovely lasagna and salad lunch today to the Senior Advisory Board with delicious desserts from Maui Melts. My gift to them for their hard work. And we watched a video of a presentation that was made to the Oregon Mayors Association on the history of racism in Oregon. It's a presentation that was put together by the executive director of the Oregon Historical Society. And the whole board watched that today, that presentation, and had a really good discussion about our observations about that. So doing their DEI work and really great board. So that was one other. No, he's just pointing.
I've just got a quick, couple of quick council comment items that I wanted to share.
Okay, I'm going to let Marty do her report first.
I'll make my report very brief. I'd like to add my thanks to the mayors for all the hard work that went into the Making Spirits Bright events over the weekend. As you mentioned, I think it takes a lot of work and planning, and I just really think it's lots of fun and festive activities that happen. So I'm grateful to our staff and the MBA for the work that they put into making that happen. None of these are related. It always feels like a big random list of things that I wanted to talk about. I mentioned in my Friday notes that we welcomed our newest police officer, swore her in, Rachel McBride, last Friday, and we have a couple of vacancies in the police department and are well on our way to having candidates in backgrounds. We've got good news on the police hiring front that I just feel like you should know about because you might be meeting more new officers again soon, which will be a good thing. I was asked by one of you a couple weeks ago, will we be considering changes to the noise ordinance? And I don't want you to think that that's fallen off our radar. Chief Haynes and I are putting together a proposal that we'll bring to you in the new year. And we'll be working with our business community to get some input and feedback even as we bring it to you. Let's see. I asked if you would save the date for your council goal setting in February 18th. And I just wanted to give you one other bit of information. You'll get another save the date request from me in January as a precursor to the goal setting. Sabra and I are putting together, or we're designing a community town hall meeting so that you can all get input from the community about what folks in the Monmouth community care about and are thinking about for the future. So that's going to be a meeting coming up in January. I don't have the date quite yet, but when I do, I'll be asking you to attend and be part of that conversation.
And we would make that a virtual option as well.
Yes, it would, right. We've got a format that the mayor has offered that called World Cafe, a framework that we would use for the conversation. That you are all nodding as though you are familiar.
That you all might have to help facilitate.
We may be looking for facilitators, and it might be a great way for you to be part of the listening session element of that. So just wanted to give you a heads up that there will be a little bit of homework between that and working with our facilitator for the goal setting, her name is Sarah Singer-Wilson, and we've engaged her for the February part of it, but our community conversation, I'm hoping will come right before that in January. And finally, congratulations to those of you who are newly elected since the canvass of the vote was announced tonight.
Yay.
Happy to be serving with all of you going forward. That's all I have for my report.
Thank you. All right, council comments and announcements.
So if you haven't been into Independence City Hall recently, they have a display up that is absolutely stunning of the relationship between our local indigenous people and what happened between the time white settlers came to town and roughly the early 20th century. And it's a large display, large panels, the design alone is fabulous. It's worth checking it out just for the design. but reading the text is very impactful. I recommend it highly. So, as Councilor Lopez has mentioned, the Arts and Culture Commission is doing a survey called the Arts and Economic Prosperity Survey, which is a nationwide survey looking at the impact of the arts on local economies. And we're asking people to fill out this survey at a number of events. And I wound up getting to work by myself on Saturday at the Smith Fine Arts Series event. I landed 25 surveys plus a bunch of people took QR codes. But the most interesting one was this young woman, and someone I'm thinking was probably her dad came in and said, survey. And she said, well, I'm not from around here. And I said, you're exactly who we want. And she said, well, okay. And I said, where are you from? And she said, Maine. And I said, now, don't tell me that you're here tonight to see Typhoon all the way from Maine. And she said, yeah, I love this band. And so my impression is that she didn't come only for that, because she also mentioned the Cypri and knowing people related to that business. So I think she has other connections to the community. But she, when she put down the amount she spent to come to this arts event in Monmouth, I think it was, I didn't look at it, but I'm sure it was significant. But my point being, the arts do have an impact on our local community. The Smith Fine Arts Series, other people I talked to were here from Dallas, from Corvallis, from Portland, from Eugene. It draws a lot of people to town, and we have similar results from other events, maybe not quite so widespread, but we do see people coming to Monmouth for the arts. And this survey is really good, and I'm having a good time helping the commission and my spouse deliver these. I've gotten the mayor at least twice at 2 different events. Thank you, Cece. So it's good stuff, though. Yeah, and it was fun having her say, I'm from Maine. Clear across country. That's all.
Other announcements or comments? Thank you all again. Have a wonderful rest of December. We are taking off. We will not be meeting on December 20th, so we'll convene in January. Looking forward to swearing in our swearing out. Councilor Oberst used to say, our new council, and get started, like you say, on our new year and new work. And you'll also be hearing from me. We do need to conduct the evaluation of our city manager, and I will be sending those forms out to you, giving you a little homework between now and the end of the year.
Sharpen my pencil.
So appreciate everybody and your work tonight, and we're going to get out of here. I'm sure, let's see, I'm going to guess who won. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, signify by saying
aye.
Thank you very much. We are out.